So this is the April 4th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Groton Conservation Commission. My name is Bruce Lofgren with the Office of Planning and Development Services. Larry Dunn is the chair. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format via Zoom and in person at the Town Hall Annex in Groton. So Larry, if you'd like to take the call.
Yeah, Larry Dunn, chair.
Ray Rafferty, vice chair.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
This is Dante, member.
I'm also member.
And joining remotely,
Ann Schmidt, member.
all right. All right, first order of business is the minutes of meeting from March 7th.
Move we accept the minutes as presented. Second. Second.
Any discussion? All right, let's have a vote on approving the minutes of meeting from March 7th. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm abstaining. I wasn't here.
Abstaining. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 yays, 1 abstention.
5 years.
5 yays, 1 abstention. I can't count. I keep forgetting the virtual land. Okay. Next is public communications. Well, there's no one. Oh, I'm sorry. There's Liz. I was
Liz
looking.
is
We have a chair for you, Liz.
Yep.
All right. Can we?
You're
No,
muted,
no, you're muted. Can we unmute? You have to unmute.
There, okay?
There we
Yeah,
go.
I can hear you.
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Conservation Commission. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person this evening, but I have another meeting that's going to come up quite rapidly. First, I want to say how much I appreciate the work Bruce Lofgren has done for this commission. You guys have been very lucky to have Bruce for these 4 years. The work I'm most familiar with is the plastics ordinance, which came up very early in his career here, and he did a masterful job of researching ordinance around the state and played a really key role in developing a first-class ordinance for Groton. Bruce, I really wish you the best. I'm really sorry we're losing you, but I hope it's going to be fun in West Greenwich, East Greenwich, one of those Greenwiches. Okay. Next, I just want to say that I see you have plastics, sort of an update or something on your agenda. I think Chris Kuhn reported to you previously, we're very interested in increasing the mill thickness in Groton because some of the larger corporations are trying to get around small plastic bags by calling them reusable, and they're not. The good news is, which you may know, Walmart has stopped distributing these small, thick, sort of thick plastic bags because they were too expensive to produce. CVS, I know, is still producing them. And I have to say, unfortunately, I've been kind of distracted with data centers for the last couple of months and have not gotten around town as much as I would have liked. But if things get a little quieter, both Chris and I would like to get around town and see what's happening in various stores on the ordinance and see what kind of compliance we have. And just casually, I have to say that on the whole, we're in pretty good compliance. Starbucks, however, is still serving those little sticks in their coffee cups, which are completely useless. You just pull them out, throw them away. And so that's really all I have to say at the moment on plastics. I want to say a word about data centers also. Thank you for weighing in, Conservation Commission. I think you were very helpful. It's clear to us that what the town needs to do is step back and set standards for data centers. It's been a seat of the pants effort, frankly, so far, coming in sort of at the last minute with dropping in Wallingford's noise ordinance, frankly, without probably really understanding it fully. And the two big areas that the town needs to invest probably some money, staff or consultancy in is our noise and pollution from the generators. We're very concerned about peak shaving. And while Mr. Quinn has told us, oh, it'll just be a couple hours now and then, we are not at all certain that is true. They're very polluting. They cause a lot of harm. Just ask Ledge Light about diesel pollution and they'll give you an earful. So I commend to you SB 236, which is a bill, a Senate bill that limits pollution from diesel generators, limits the number of hours that data centers can use, or anybody can use, peak shaving. It tracks the Delaware law where they have controls on peak shaving, which have been in effect since 2012. You may know about this. Forgive me if I'm telling you what you already know about. But Delaware still has plenty of data centers in its state. So those to us are the two really big issues that need to be dealt with. And the town needs to take the time needed to step back and do the research and come up with standards for data centers instead of letting this proposals just come in from anybody putting big chunk of money on the table and saying, go with us. So that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. And I guess that's the double check. There's nobody. Okay. So the next, well, speaking of data center, so the next item of business is data center update, and you probably have all been tracking this from our last meeting. We agreed on a position or a neutral position, if you will, with the request or with the support of getting a level of environmental controls over the data center bill. So you already was, I guess, voted down with prejudice. I thought that was, they kind of threw that in there, which means, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, you have to have six council members have to agree to put it back on the agenda.
Right.
Now, as recall when we started this whole thing, is one of the sidebars was, how do we get conservation and development to work together? Because you really should. It's not one or the other. So I mean, a long time ago, and in our plan, we talked about conservation development areas, residential areas, right? And this was the first one from a business point of view that we, worked with the EDC on. So I guess the good news was we did have a cross exchange of information. There was some collaboration there. But the fact is that if they didn't want to tax benefits, they wouldn't have had to do all this stuff. Right? I mean, it's a industrial property and they can build a data center if they want, right? They just wouldn't get the tax advantage. One of the questions is, do we want to support looking at changes to the zoning laws that provide some zoning changes, et cetera. Obviously, they would have to do that, not us. But, so do we want to inject ourselves into that process and do anything or take a position with planning and zoning on any modification or just wait and see what happens and then jump in if they in fact bring something up? So we want to be proactive or reactive, I guess is what I'm throwing out on the table on this thing.
As far as this, Tom Olson, as far as what I took away from the discussion that the town council took was that this was proper, that the area that they're in is zoned industrial, and that this usage that they were proposing was going to comply with that zoning. And so I think that's outside of our scope until they come in with their plan. If, like you say, they come in without asking for the abatement to come in and put it in, because then their plan had 50 acres or so coming to the town. We need to be able to, and I don't think at this time there's anything that's actionable for us to really get out ahead of at this time. So I would just recommend.
So you vote for reactive, not proactive?
At this time.
At this
yes.
time. No, okay, no, that's
I just don't see anything that
That
we
we
can
can-
really grab our things on it, because when the areas, as far as supporting like Liz brought up, as far as supporting the state bill, I think there's been already, and there's enough. I listened to some of the items that were in the testimony that was provided, so we're already outside the window for public comment on that bill and stuff. There's really, hands are kind of tied to what we can be doing as a commission here. As far as the only thing that we could be advocating is potentially for a noise, but is that really inside of our scope as far as Conservation Commission, as far as from I don't see
our
it.
chart. Our charter is.
Well,
it's a stretch.
what if conservative, I'm sorry, Kristen, it's nothing, I'm interrupting, but I just a rhetorical question. Conservation doesn't that have quality of life? Isn't that part of? I mean,
Well,
noise.
technically, our charter by the town has some very limited work scopes that we're supposed to be involved with, which deals with the disposition of town-owned properties, the acquisition of open space properties, and providing an inventory on the same. Everything else we've done has been kind of a stretch on our part.
Or we've been tasked by the town
Or
manager.
tasked by the town
Like the
manager.
plastic, it was brought up by the town council, they gave it to the town manager, he gave it to us.
Right,
Okay.
and we volunteered for it, and but they authorized us, so,
Right.
yeah, there's the,
If it comes through that way, that's what I'm willing to stand by if they want us to get involved in noise considerations and that type of stuff. Fine, I don't have a real problem getting involved in that, but at this time, I don't see us proactively going after that.
other comments? Right?
Spray. I had a phone call from the Sustainability Task Force. It took me to task to defend our position on that you've stated.
Which was we weren't taking a position.
Exactly. So it was a heated conversation for about a half hour.
Wow.
And then luckily we both had things to do. But out of that, it's one where, just to follow up on Tom's comment and yours about, do we get involved or not? We are advisory. And there's a whole slew of things that are related environmentally. Noise is certainly one of them. That if we see something going on, we can ask the questions, what's the town's position on that? And so we can put our oar in the water, even though we're not requested to do, because certainly with plastics and we've got the Conservation Commission has a long record of recycling that started before I ever came on here, which is a long time ago.
Back with the dinosaurs.
Yes, there was a transition from dinosaurs to Bray to here. And the one thing though, that Sustainable Task Force had a strong concern about the whole data center concern was the amount of power that it was going to need to drive it. And because of such a size of the power to run it would be more than putting solar panels on the roof, for instance. There wouldn't be enough solar area, for instance, to supply what their daily needs are and so forth. It was above and beyond that. I very much felt that because we've not looked at data centers at all, and especially on a large scale, that I really have no concept of a cloud. How big are you? And obviously a cloud is a structure somewhere. Apple's cloud, you filled your cloud. and
Many
you-
places, it's not. one
Right.
place.
Right. It is many places, but because we're not used to knowing what those power demands are. It's hard for me to, so when I hear what their demands are, and yes, they've asked the local utilities, can you supply it? And they would it sounds like more than happy to accommodate them if it moves forward. There's a lot of things that came out of this particular proposal that certainly tweaks the mind, and many things that generates questions that aren't writable answers at this point. The other thing is that this particular industrial land, as Tom was saying, is open for development, and the town is encouraging it. Something is going to come in there. And nothing has happened for over 20 years. And I think we're all used to it being a quiet piece of, right now it's forested land, but it's got this big sticker right on its forehead that says we're industrial.
For over 40 years. It's not new. So it's, because I asked John Reiner, how long has this been classified industrial? He says at least 40 years.
Right.
So, so when you move next to an industrial zoned area, you cannot, in my view, is you shouldn't complain later that says they can't build something there because it's gonna affect me.
Right.
That's a known, right? It's not like we just rezoned it. That'd be a
Right.
whole different thing. I'd have to be somewhat sympathetic. But on the power issue, it's almost to me, not a non-issue, because as long as you're in the eastern grid, they're gonna suck the power in from whoever makes it. We're not gonna build a power plant in Groton to supply the data center. It's not gonna be some new invention, and somehow if they don't build it, the power is not gonna get consumed. The across the grid, because we've got two major grids, right? They're resellers. So the local power companies reselling power, they suck in from someplace else. Now, one of the things that I thought we never got to, that was interesting in the application was, commitment to use green power, which means they don't get it from fossil fuel plants, they get it from someplace else. Right, so there's things that you can put in there, but to me, it's not a Groton issue, right? The fact that we consume or not consume power should not be an issue to us, because we're not building a power plant here. We're not changing the fabric of power consumption. We'll get to that a little later, by the way, when we talk about later in the thing about how to measure what Groton can affect with power consumption later in the agenda. But so I think we kind of get, to some extent, we're mixing too many different things. We're not addressing the United States power issue. I mean, there's a lot of federal programs to do that and to generate power with solar, in areas which can afford it. You're not, like I said, you need 1,000 acres of solar panels in order to drive this. There's no 1,000 acres in Groton. Even if you wanted to, you could do it, right? Plus the amount of sun you get here wouldn't make it practical anyway. So the power panels and all the stuff's going to be done in the west, where where there's sun and flat, and they're going to ship the power here or wherever it is. So if they build it in New York or New Jersey, the same damn data center, power consumption in the United States isn't going to change. So I think so my response is that two things when we get asked, which is they shouldn't have asked you individually, because as they should come to one of these meetings and ask the question, but they should.
Well, it wasn't their commission to my commission. It was a member of the commission.
Okay.
Having a phone conversation. So it wasn't
Wasn't an official
official. It
conversation.
was not an
Okay,
official
all right.
conversation, but it was an interesting conversation because your response right now is very informative. And looking at the whole power grid is not something in our,
Right,
that we work on every year. It's not in our plan, as a matter of fact.
But I would say that, the state of Connecticut has set some green goals. Energy, usage reduction and something like something like this in the state, something that's just sucking this power and that is not gonna offset. I mean, the word, that's not gonna be offset. That's not, don't think
yes, yes, they can build, it's like if it's green energy. In other words, if they've done it from a solar plant, it absolutely meets the state and federal requirements. So so
the diesel generators aren't gonna.
that's a different thing entirely. That's not generating power for power's sake. That's in order to be a data center, you have to have backup power generation facilities. So the issue isn't that it's there or not there. It's the quality of I don't want to get and relitigate the whole damn thing, but it's the type of diesel generators, it's how often they run them, when they run them. If they run a good one is if they run a well-run data center, you shouldn't be running that more than a weekly or monthly test for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, that's it, theoretically, right? Theoretically, but it's all a question of, the limits that they do in their business. But again, somebody can sit there and say, I'm gonna put 16 diesel generators on that site. I'm gonna generate power to sell to you. And they have every right to do that according to the current zoning requirements.
Well, no, I agree with what he's saying is about the zoning, but also there's the siting requirements. We start getting into power generation.
Yeah.
It's separate with the state. But I think just to kind of get back on the original question in regard to, we should be supporting as a conservation commission, having the green consumption of the green energy in there. And I think that we did that in the recommendations we made last month. And I think that's where we should be coming in.
Right.
And then also informing. Now, should we be saying or advocating as part of the zoning that any energy consumption for new construction or something like that, that's a potential thing that we could be advocating for.
We're gonna get to that discussion coming up.
Okay.
But that, I have some specific thoughts and the data model and John Reiner and I have been kind of working on something, so I'm gonna share that with you today, although it's really early. But at least it's a data point to get to exactly that question, which is how can we affect what we can affect versus we're not going to affect the power structure of the United States. I mean, that's I don't even want to go there. Okay,
Could I just put in just a small little comment on this particular parcel, which I know a big piece of it is some wetland, which is potentially very sensitive because it goes to the sheep farm, that sheep farm. As a geologist, I've been taking some hikes around lately, and as a geologist, I think I appreciate maybe more than most the amazing ledge we have here, because there's no place else in the United States, really. I mean, maybe I haven't really been up in Maine, I guess they would have it, but what makes this coastline so unique is that, you got the Long Island, the glacial moraine, which has prevented the erosion of our whole shoreline into beaches like Rhode Island has. And so we have these nooks and crannies, but in there, the inlets and the protrusions and stuff, but the ledge itself is really unusual. I mean, that might be something, I know this is not going to gain traction with probably anybody, but I think there should be some attention to just native original ledge, because once you blast that stuff out and put it in a road or put it in a school or put it in a mall, that stuff's gone. And it's really, really unique. It's very geologically unique. It's very special. It's very local. Like, you don't have that everywhere. You have it here in Connecticut. So I just want to I don't know, put a shout out to the ledge, that I think the ledge is maybe underappreciated around here, how cool it is, how special and how unique. So, right, along with the wetlands.
So the net of this discussion, yes.
I just wanted to add in kind of, where staff has been going with the data centers, post town council decision. Even prior, I'm not sure how much you all follow other boards and commissions of the town, but the Planning and Zoning Commission has instructed staff to draft a moratorium on data centers. So we'll be putting that, we're working on that now. We'll be putting that in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission soon, unless they feel that we don't need it anymore. since the last town council decision, but I think we're still going to be moving forward with that. The next step after that, after the moratorium, will be actually developing regulations for specific data centers. So that would include, development standards for noise, for buffers, for, generators and things like that. So we are working on that. And the moratorium will come first, probably within the next 3 months, and then the set of regulations probably within the next 6.
So that's all what we supported is if you want to develop it, we're not going to, say, we're not going to recommend no, but there are standards that you must meet in order to do that. And, how, you're right. What is that level of standard? So we took, some initial thought, but obviously not as much time as you guys can spend to research it. So, but I think the question on the table was proactive, reactive, and right now it's going to be reactive. So, but I think what you've said with the zoning is that as that comes forward for the development, I think certainly we can provide, whether some input or suggestions as we have in terms of what standard should be there. And that's where GCA or other, groups can come in and say, hey, we'd like to see this. That's different than saying you can't develop. I think that one, that one's that goes down a litigation path, and I'm not interested in doing that at all. All right, so next item on the agenda, plastic ordinance review.
Larry, before you go on, sorry, the
Yeah.
voice from above. What's the status of the Got Space data center? Is that still just hanging out there?
Well, it's a legally signed document. There's lawsuits circling that whole effort. When I first looked at that a month ago, when we started this thing, my sense was it was a scam to begin with. And I never thought anything would happen. That's what I told John Bird and John Reiner. I said, that's my assessment. This thing, that Got Space will never happen. The next one had a lot more realistic shot because they actually did more what I would call substantive work with a more rational plan. So no, I think that one is technically it's alive, but I
Was
don't.
there a termination?
Yes.
A 1-year term? I thought there was
Yeah,
a 1-year.
there's a 1-year,
termination.
yeah, which is coming up.
But I should be like today or tomorrow. It was signed like, I think, April 6th of last year.
Yeah, I thought it was a little, but it was, yeah, there's a cutoff date and it's not that far away. That's what I think. I think that one's a dead issue, quite frankly.
How long is
Okay.
that moratorium? The planning and zoning or data centers, is that 6 months? Is it a year? Do they have a time frame on it?
Hasn't been decided yet. The details are just kind of been discussed in kind of a preliminary format, but they were saying, I think they were leaning towards 6 months.
Okay. Okay, Ann?
Thank you.
Okay. Plastic ordinance. So I think the prime thing there was, and Liz gave us an update on at least one of the businesses. So I guess the question is that something that needs to be pursued or it's not as high priority given the biggest offender is kind of backed off from it?
I wasn't here last month, but I know Chris Kuhn and Liz, I think we're gonna do research on, I think a lot of towns, communities have rewritten their ordinances to a thicker,
Yeah.
so they were gonna, I don't know if they brought it back last time or not. For us to just see, if we thought this was something, we should just basically kind of change the number and then put it in front of the town council.
I have not seen, here's the towns and here's the ordinance change in terms of research. Liz is, oh, there she is.
Sidetracked with data centers, honestly.
So we'll, yeah, Liz, can you provide any input on that?
Yes, as I said in my opening remarks, we have not been able to complete the research that we want to do. We have done some, but we feel we need to do more to see what's happening out in the town. And unfortunately, we've both been distracted by DC's data centers. But hopefully, if there's going to be a moratorium and we'll be back on it very soon and we'll report back.
All right, I think that's, yeah, getting the data is there. I think we kind of said that we're willing to support it. but let's get the data, and it's not that big a change, and you're right, that would be the sequence, get the data, take a position, go to the town council, recommend a change to the ordinance. All right,
Great, okay.
Question and statement. One question is straws. So went into Taco Bell, I think, and did not order drinks, but there is a drink dispenser over on the side. They give you a cup and you go fill it up with what you want. And there were straws there for you to take. So I grabbed one just to see what it was and took it home. And it's a plastic straw. And I was hoping it was going to be paper. And I'm not sure, I don't know when people drive through and order drinks, whether they're requesting a straw, and which I guess at that time you could get a plastic one, but I felt that just sitting out there on its own, anybody could grab one at any point, that they would be some sort of recyclable kind of a straw. And I'm not quite sure where that fits in this regulation.
I can say what I've done on occasion, many occasions, when I've gone into a business and been given a plastic straw. I've just spoken with the manager, said, hey, I don't know if you're aware, but there's this ordinance, and maybe I give you an email, I send them a copy of the ordinance. I say, I'm just giving you a heads up here, because the first, you get a warning, but then it's a violation. And I said, I'm not gonna report you, but, and then I kind of go back later and check and see if they changed. But mostly they claim to be very grateful to be informed of the change. They claim they didn't know. So.
kind of strange how you not know at this point. Yeah, I've checked out some of the straws, and it'd been, the ones I've seen have been paper, actually. So, so I think there are some, I know that the staff has been doing follow-up and compliance. I think it's been mainly benign is not the right word, but people have been following the ordinance for the most part. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't received any complaints. Well, we haven't received too many complaints, and there hasn't been too many repeat offenders. So the complaints we have received, we usually take an informal approach by, kind of what you were mentioning, Kristen. We call them, we let them know what the ordinance is, and they usually comply shortly after. So we haven't had to take it to the next enforcement level with any of the ones we became aware of.
All right, that kind of tracks what we've seen in other towns, where after the initial hubbub, it's kind of like everybody adjusts and then life goes on, and nobody, you kind of don't recognize it anymore. I mean, people get into different habits.
Yeah, and there haven't been any complaints the other way. I haven't heard any complaints from the business community, saying, this is too difficult to comply with, it's not feasible. There hasn't been anything like that. It's been very, it's not that big of a deal from what I've seen.
So even the folks who were initially the most outspoken, I think Dunkin' Donuts, I believe, own franchise.
Winchester. I don't go there either.
I don't either. So I
It's
haven't
a
heard
field
them.
trip. Dunkin' Donuts.
Field trip to
Taco Bell.
Dunkin' Donuts.
We'll have the next meeting there.
right.
Stick around another month and I'll bring in donuts. It's not enough, huh? Yeah, okay. All right, so that one is we will wait for
And I put a little discussion point on the table. One of the things that in the past, the Conservation Commission advocated to the town, that there was a time when the town would send out to all the basically taxpayers in the town a flyer every year in regards to solid waste. And it would be something about Household Hazardous Waste Day, when it's going to be, and now it's regional, it's posted. And also on it, we also encouraged to have the conservation, we enforce recycling, to think about it, what sort of things you can recycle, what you can't recycle, and here's a running list. And I've been following in the news about all the problems that Hartford is now going through, where they're closing down their burning plant within by June, I guess. And looking at alternatives. And one of the things that appears that's come out of all this is the truth about recycling for plastics apparently is just number ones and number twos. That everything else is burned or it's not recycled. It's landfilled or whatever. And the other emphasis was plastic bags that we used to have, the single-use plastic bags that you can get in, I guess, the city of Groton you could, because they don't have an ordinance in the city.
State that.
Right.
You have to pay, you have to pay.
Right. But they don't want any of those types of bags going in. And there was an article in the Harper Current recently in the conversation with other towns who were trying to address recycling problem from the recycler who's receiving the plastics and so forth, saying that, for instance, one person was saying that if you put all your recyclable plastics in a plastic garbage bag and that goes out in the truck for recyclables and it comes in that way, we will not open it up and spill out the recyclables to see what's there. We will consider it as garbage
Wow.
and keep it going.
That's right.
And so they're trying to streamline what they can recycle and with the least amount of waste on their part.
So you're suggesting that we put out a kind of an update and reminder, because that's what I do. I only put in ones and twos because I know it
Right.
won't work. And yes, I dump them out of the basket in there, so it's not in another container, because I know they won't accept that as well. But a lot of people don't know that. They think they're doing good by throwing everything in there, and it just kind of screws up the.
Wish cycling,
And the last thing,
wish cycling.
Oh, it's wish.
Wish
yes,
cycling, yeah.
yes. And the other was Stonington now has that pink bag for recycling,
Yeah.
but it's clothing. And you put it out at the street whenever you want to fill it up and they will pick it up. And what they're trying to do is to get all sorts of clothing, whether it's old blue jeans or whatever, out of the waste stream. And that there are places that will take that material and process it and recycle or recombine,
Do we
whatever.
know who does that at Stonington? Who's is that the town doing it?
town.
Like, because that might be something easy to jump on board. It's probably someone just going around with a truck and they're selling it as scrap, then it goes off to India or Africa and get made into rugs, you know? If we followed up on like what entity's actually doing it, might be easy to,
Yeah.
I mean, who's in charge of it in the
Oh,
town?
oh, who buys it?
buys it,
Oh,
who's
that
collecting
part of it, I'm not familiar with. In other words, a lot of people are advocating in Groton that we go to the yellow bags that they use in Stonington, that you buy your bags for all your garbage, because then feeling the onus of the cost is on you. And then that's why they have this pink bag. Not everybody uses it, but it's part of the learning process going forward.
So a couple things. One is, you mentioned, do we want to put out kind of a reminder, update, informational that things have changed? You're right, the burning plan has gone down. So we're getting constrained and, there's things not going to be done, like reduce the amount that's going into what really gets recycled. And coming up, they're not ready yet, but, the organic waste facility is kind of chugging along, and that may get into production later this year, maybe next year. I mean, I'm trying to remember the last update from our friends at Sarah. But it seems in all that it's not a bad thought to kind of give folks an update, because it's changed. I mean, the environment we live in and what the definition of recycling, has changed. So is there a yes?
I'm a little concerned here as far as from making this a recommendation to the town, because right now, each fire district does its own waste removal, whether it's recycling or trash, or whatever they want to do in that individual fire district. And so is it really our job here from the conservation to be trying to do all 10 or the fire districts in.
No, the thought is saying it, look, however you have,
But should we be
recycle.
addressing to the fire districts, not to the general public?
No,
That's my point.
no, I look at it to say the fire district is part of
But
they,
each one, my son is in a different part of town. He has a totally different whole process.
right,
But
yeah,
it's still a container that you put stuff in.
The town
Yes.
still sets the tone, doesn't it? The
No.
town still says,
Well, the town's setting a tone, maybe years ago, but right now, it's an individual. I mean, Larry and I see the same, because we're from the Noang Fire District. We see, I get a rule, I get a nice sheet that comes out once a year. It says, here's what goes in, here's the reminder and all this kind of stuff. From the guy that contracted with the Noang Fire District. And I write my check to that guy, or to the Noang Fire District for my trash removal, not to a company. It's going to that fire district. So should we be talking to if you're gonna put anything out, should we be focusing our concerns at the fire districts? And what they're doing at the individual, not at the individual house level, but at the individual fire district level. How are you contracting? Are you providing pink bag service to your people in your district? That type of stuff.
I think we should do a little research, a little fact finding, a little information seeking. No?
fire districts are one of the ways that they subdivided the responsibility. In Mystic, they throw it in my taxes. I don't even know I have district tax, a fire district tax. And I don't know how much of that is my garbage pickup.
Well, I write it as a separate check in knowing.
Yeah, that's the way we, yeah.
Right.
Each fire district is a little different.
And then, well, it's not only, the rest of the town is also up to the individuals. I suppose if you're in a apartment complex, it's a dumpster, something like that.
Yeah.
They can't have every person have his own contractor, but that's, at one point, there was a discussion on the Conservation Commission, we were talking about the town actually picking up all the garbage,
Well, that's what you got in Groton City.
right, in Groton
I
City.
was gonna say the city, it's just the city.
And Groton was, we used the city and said, look, it's working over here. And it had, I think, maybe 1,000 years ago, worked here, but went away. And the object of having the town pick it up is like in the city, they can control what they'll pick up, how it's sorted and so forth. So there is a selective process going on there. In the town, the problem was when we started to raise the flag on it, all the haulers, the garbage haulers said, we're going to do it our own way. And the haulers didn't necessarily divide the town up and said, you have that part and you have that part. There was overlap and so forth. There was going on competition on the street, who's going to get the most, but that did not lend itself to having a single authority and selection. But having said that, the plastic ordinance applies across the town.
Well, other than the 3 regions, or it doesn't. In Groton, Long Point in the city.
Oh, right.
All right, so getting back to the question on the table is, do we want to take any action in terms of the changing environment of waste management from the highest level thing? Let it go, or not, right? You suggested doing more research. You suggested putting out an updated note to everyone regardless of the fire district. And your suggestion was if we do anything, send a note to the fire district. I think that kind of summarizes what I heard. So is there any consensus or direction on what this august commission would like to do?
Michelle, I honestly am not sure it's our position to even do anything with this right now. I mean, I agree that it's an issue, but is it our issue?
Are we looking for a problem?
Well, I mean, that's
No,
like,
the
it's
problem
like,
is there, do we want to get involved with the solution?
well,
of the
it's not
problem.
obvious to me what problems we're trying to solve.
well, this is an extension of the plastic pollution problem, which is a major problem. I mean, the plastic pollution problem related to waste pickup.
Right, but we're
and
not gonna
composting.
Well,
solve
no,
that.
well, we could, I mean,
Little by little, yeah.
in theory, we could be, just to advocate for what you're saying here, is that we could be, as a Conservation Commission, recommending a standard from the town perspective to be enforced on the fire districts and who they're hiring and how, and the processes for a minimum standard that hauler would have to be using relative to recycles and this type of stuff. I mean, we can go back, and that's what I'm saying, and I would be advocating to go do the research as far as finding out what the haulers are doing and what they're not doing to make sure we actually have a problem here that we can go off and solve, because maybe it might not be solvable.
I think we've got a cost issue that's gonna drive this discussion. So when the current SCARA contract expires, I think it's 9 years from now. So that was, I remember
I
it
thought
10.
Sooner,
It was so, well, it used to
maybe
be
it was
10, but it's been
10,
a
2
couple.
or 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
so that's why
Yeah.
I'm trying to adjust when it was. So there's a finite amount of time. Within that, at the end of that time, our costs are gonna double. So there's an interest of the town that says, you wanna wait until it doubles before you take action, or do you wanna say, look, we know this is coming. What are we gonna do in order to manage our waste management issues? Or everyone in this town, us included, are gonna wind up spending more money because we have not managed and controlled our waste.
So the issue though, part of the issue is, the problem is that there's not places to recycle the stuff. We can't fix that problem.
I don't disagree, but that says, how do you use less? So the
Well,
point
using
is,
less is true, but how you put stuff in your bin isn't gonna change anything, because they can't recycle it.
Yeah, but the point is, don't put it in the bin if it can't be recycled.
Well,
That's
don't use it in
number
the
one.
first place is the point, not what.
but
Well, you can't avoid that.
But I think we're going back in the other direction, but Bray was talking about the pink collector bags they have at Stonington. And we've spent a lot of time talking with Anthony, what's his name? David, the SCARA guy.
oh, yeah, yep.
I mean, we've
David.
had them in, so we're already kind of in the game as far as waste management and composting and being behind that and being for it. And it's a follow-up on all the plastic issues. So I think it may not be on the front burner right now, but I think we should definitely keep it on the stove. I think we should be thinking about it, moving forward with it, maybe slowly, but I don't think we should drop it and say it's not a problem. If not us, who? This is a conservation issue. If we're not doing it, someone's got to take, someone's got to
One of the
support it.
questions I would like to ask is, ask the town, and this would be the person in charge of solid waste, which I still think is Stacy.
Yeah, she would be.
I think. In the past, under Public Works, Stacy Omar, I can't always forget her last name. She had been the point person in the big picture that when the town goes out and works with SCARA and they look at what the cost is per ton that the town has to get rid of and so forth, and negotiating through that, a lot of times she was the one that we also talked about household hazardous waste, making that a separate disposal, and that and then it became regional. So that's been a win situation there. But to go back to her and just say, what are you hearing that may be problems? Let's say Willimantic waste paper, because I think that all our recyclables, I believe, are going through them. And then our the burn all now goes up to Lisbon, I believe, right? Which is privately owned. And we moved away from Preston up to Lisbon because of a better price. But the question is, are we sorting, are we managing our stuff well, or we're not? And I think if we poke this thing get a work on certain aspects and see what's working, and maybe we can dovetail that and introduce it into our community.
So I have a volunteer to work with Public Works in terms of what's Groton's long-term waste management, solid waste management.
I'll ask,
Right.
I can ask.
Okay, so Bray will take a follow-up on overall plan. And I think at some point, right now town council's got a lot on their plate, but I think at some point that we would need to bring this forward as identification of an issue or with Public Works, and then suggestions on go forward plans for solid waste management, including organic waste, in terms of proper separation, whatever it might be.
Hazy throw.
But yeah,
critical, Reducing the amount of
Yep.
waste.
Yeah.
Yellow bags
You
critical.
know,
Right.
since the town has introduced mattresses. They didn't necessarily have to, but I think there's something down at the state supporting that.
yeah, then there's a
So-
big thing there, you throw your mattress
Right,
in the.
right.
in the,
Instead of leaving it off at Pequot Woods or something,
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah.
That used to be a favorite drop off.
All right, so moving along, now it's 6 o'clock. The next topic is the 30 by 30 objective and definition. And Tom, I think.
Yes, what I did was I worked with Noah. And now I don't have a capability from this machine to bring it up, but if, I don't know if you do, but the inventory, what we did is we modified the inventory, the online inventory, which still hasn't gone live. But he now went and brought up on the layers, he's
I'm gonna
added.
bring it up.
Yeah,
to
if you
mine,
could.
yeah.
That'd be
You need
helpful.
to promote me though, because I don't have a share function here.
But what we did was, so we have now a layer that brings in, that you can take a look and bring out all the zoning.
Hmm.
And then also we've, on the index, we've brought in all, every parcel that's on there also has its zoning included, which we didn't have before. And the reason I asked for the zoning was I went and did some research here to take a look at what's going on, like we talked about earlier with the designated zone for industrial. You go take a look at the zoning map. We have three general areas. We have industrial type of stuff, we have residential stuff, and you got the conservation part, okay? The conservation part, I haven't done the actual numbers yet of what was actually zoned, because he just finished this today. So I haven't had a chance to do much analysis of it. But the index is, I'm gonna go find out how much of the zone, how much is zoned as open space, is what they call GC or GR for green recreation or green conservation. So there's a layer there that brings up the, so those are all the 400 odd parcels that are considered open space in one of the three categorizations, either dedicated, managed, or facilities. And now you'll see zoning down there.
Which what?
Yeah, right there, the zoning.
Oh, zone, yeah, I got,
You have to go open it one more. It's then open, and then you can put out for each of the towns.
oh, that's new, all right.
Yeah, that's the new part
Okay.
here. That where he said that each of the towns, of the zoning areas of the town, bring up a map, overlay the zoning on top of that.
So why isn't that working?
Because you have to make sure all of them have the eye all the way up, visible. I think the top
Oh.
one is not either, okay?
Here we
Where
go.
is this website?
This is
This is the one I sent you.
yeah, we can resend this link. This
Okay,
is
there
the-
you go.
This is the Conservation Commission viewer, a portion of the town GIS website. So,
Okay, here we go. So if I just leave Groton town zoning,
yeah,
and that eye open,
right. So now
There you
it's
go.
late. So now I'm able to go in and take a look at areas, and what I'm gonna do over the coming month here is to take a look at how much of the town is zoned for conservation. I think it's gonna come somewhere probably, I kind of guess right now, 15 to 18%. Okay. So one of the things that, based on that, I said, well, zoning is a form of protection. Okay. And so to get to the 30% goal, the new goal that's established out of the White House that we talked about last month, would be to take a look at, are there areas in the town that we could consider changing the zoning and be an advocate for that as a conservation commission, okay? And rather than, as Bruce mentioned, we have to be very careful about this, because if you're taking a parcel and rezoning it, it could lower the value of it, and then that would be a hit to the owner, okay? But there are, and so what I did is I said, well, one of the areas that we can first take a look at is the PA 490s, okay, which is the public act where the people have bought a privately owned forest land, okay? And maybe the thing to do, and so there's some parcels, 200 acres, 196 acres, 120 acres. There's some big chunks.
Yeah, there are big chunks.
Okay, that maybe that we may, as a conservation commission, I don't like people, I'm not offering this tonight, but just to kind of bring this, to start this discussion, to think about us advocating like a letter to those individuals that says, would you be interested in working with with the Conservation Commission to be going to the Zoning Commission and consider reclassification of your parcel, particularly if it abuts an already green conservation or green recreation area. We would be changing that and then get better protection for their property. But on the flip side of it is they would be losing a future selling that, because most of these places are all currently zoned RU40. So every one of those I just mentioned, the top 4 that are 100 acres or more are RU40 zoned right now. So they would potentially lose that residential thing, but they may, as an owner, why did I buy it in the first place and put it into that program, is to go after that as a first step. Okay, if they're interested, and we would be advocating with them to go to the other commission. So
Is there anything like a tax break that they could get?
they're already getting the tax
They're getting
break.
a tax break.
They're already getting the tax break. Okay,
The rezoning take that away though?
well, it would prohibit them. They could sell it and provide that tax break to somebody else, but it would prohibit them selling it to a developer.
Right.
That would
It pays the
potentially have
penalty of the tax break.
they would pay the penalty, the tax break and that kind of stuff.
Because the other thing is like, if you take a chunk of land and they agree to donate it to, like, let's say, GOSA or
Avalonia.
Conservancy or Nature Conservancy or one of those one of those organizations, then they might get a nice tax break, like you could up the value of the land and then donate it, and then they would get a carry forward loss.
A lot of these people want to have the control. That's why they bought it in the first place. They want to still maintain it's my property.
Right,
And there's a sense of ownership with that too. So if they should have made that decision already. All I'm saying is that we may want to go investigate this. I'm just trying to look at how do we get to 30% protection, okay, when everything's already zoned out. The town, we have $0 in the
Right.
acquisition fund. How are we going to get to anywhere in the next 8 years?
Right.
Okay, because that's all we have. Okay, so this is the first, because if you go down this list, there's the nationally 1,600 acres we would need. I can almost, take the top 30 people here. If that was all rezoned, you'd be there at the 30%. Without really having a significant effect other than this, the potential, the future potential loss of value but that you really can't guarantee anything else. Okay. That's where I am right now. That's why I asked for the zoning portion to be added to the inventory here. And I'll come up with, here's the ones that I kind of feel. See, the other thing is, if somebody's already got, is it forest land or farmland, that type of stuff, and what people would want to be doing with it in the long term, and what the current owners have to do with it also. So something to consider. They may have not thought about it, but from a protection thing, I think we'd be able to take a look at. And I also want to see how much do we really have right now? Because there's some property I can tell you right now that, like, GOSA just got the sheep farm south. Okay, that's still zoned RU whatever. Okay, so those kind of things we should be going after them to change also. That would be the next phase. What other parcels are not properly zoned that should be in that even the town owns, it's an RU that we could get them to, and it's abutting and that type of stuff, and take a look at. So those are the kind of things that I need to come up with, that inventory list, and that's what I'll be working on here, to come up with those two aspects as far as from the zoning perspective.
I can see a couple of problems. One is on the 490. I know of in the past, developers own the land. And
They're surprisingly, yes, JJ's example is the first one down at 80 acres is the first one, is a realty, Mystic LLC. So the developers already own it, so I grant you.
yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get into individual places here. I'm just saying, yes. just to let you know.
Many years ago, well, when we had that $8 million bonding issue back in the late 1980s, one of the properties we bought, the Mortimer Wright property, was owned by a developer. And at the time that the buying of the properties took place, a lot of this magic development that was going on in the late 80s started to peter out. And some developers were looking at their land saying, my God, I'm hanging on to this thing. It's a lot of acreage. I don't want to carry it. And even though they put it in 490, if they saw a chance to sell it, it was going. In that case, the town bought it with the $8 million bonding issue and set it aside. But places like Whittles, which I think probably has
They got a couple of big parcels.
big parcels. Who knows, they're gonna take the gravel out of it first. You know, so they're gonna give you knock the top of the mountain off and give you the mountain back when they're all done. But I like, it's an interesting, do they call it spot zoning?
So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to avoid any of those situations where you're just going in and inside and causing an island. What I'm taking a look is my priority is to if these are abutting or ready to an existing green green zone already. So
Right.
that you're extending it. Now you're staying away from that spot zoning. I'm expanding the already zoned areas.
Even if you didn't get the whole parcel, if you could get strips along the edge.
Well, now you're talking about subdivisions and
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know. That's another
Easement
level
or
of
something.
technicality.
So Tom, in the original spreadsheet that we did with the open space properties, one of the subdivision list that's not public thing was all those properties that were in the greenway that were 490 or whatever, 990, whatever.
490.
490, right, the 490 properties that were in the, we already identified that whole list of those that were connected with the green, that were part of the green,
Right.
different greenways.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's another factor, but as far as to focus things on, but as far as, which ones to target for reclassification to get better protection. That's what I'm looking.
Right,
what I'm looking
but
at.
if you said about the, we already know which ones are near the greenways because we identified those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to get all that
Right.
information.
Right, look, so the first thing is that there's been substantive changes to the model. Right, and I guess my suggestion is perhaps we can have maybe at our next meeting, have them come back and kind of give us, with a 30-45 minutes or something, run through what's, the new and updated model. Would that be?
He's got it way right now. Everything is operating up and running according to him when I talk to him.
Well, no, I'm just talking about education, because
Okay.
we're, we could send out the link, but then I kind of go in there and I send them a note and says, where is this again? So,
Yeah.
so, there's been enough changes that it might be worthwhile to get and plus it gets him, we could thank him in person because he's been doing a lot of work on this stuff. So would you reach out at to come for next meeting for,
I can ask him. Yeah.
see if he's willing for, 30 minutes or so to give us an update as the current state of the model.
This would be under the assumption that we'd be going live after this.
Well, it is.
It's live to him, but the only people that have that link are.
No, we, based upon the last agreement with the town staff, they changed the name to the Conservation Commission. Right, and we have sent it to, let's call it the companion organizations, GCA, Avalonia, so it's semi-public, right? But you're right, at that point, we can then say, we want to put out a notice to say, hey, here's this neat thing you can go look at.
I'm just saying, when I say a link, I'm saying when I go to the conservation page on it.
And that's what I meant. That we have not done that. This is a private link that we send privately and has been sent privately. So I think that we can also put on the agenda to have that discussion. It says, given this where we're at,
Yeah.
right, get a quick update and then say, hey, guys, we want to publish it in the Groton,
On the website.
on the website, right? And put a little news, what are the news alerts? That's on the front page that says, hey, here you can go, because there's a lot of good information there that you can kind of sort and go through. Right.
I'll take the action to get
Okay.
Noah to do that. You ready for it?
All right.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
The properties that they've rezoned to have the green zone to it,
The like that dark there's dark and light greens in there, okay? Those are all that's the zoning designations right now. So like, there's parts of on the Gunjiwan property that's owned by DEP is dark green for recreation, then you got Cop Park. So you can see some of those big blobs in there. Those are the GRs, and the lighter green are the GCs, and that's where you're gonna find the Candlewood Hill Wildlife Management Area, the GOSA, Candlewood Hill and Avery Farm. You'll find Bluff Point is there. I don't know. See, some of this stuff doesn't look right to me. Bluff Point should be a recreation area, not a conservation area. and same for Haley. To me,
Well, that's.
yeah, but that was the kind of things that, you know.
But the second point, and then we talked about the first point, second point is, do we want to identify and or make a proposal to the 490 owners to change that status? And I don't know what the sales pitch would be here. Because, what's.
Well, that's why I owe it to you guys to come up with, that, as far as my research over the next month here, my action items there. I'm going to do the research, come up with, for these reasons, here's what we would be recommending. That would be they would be tailored to a generic thing that I will I have that as an action.
Okay, all right. So that would be, I marked down three actions for our next meeting. We'll do a quick review of the model. We'll have a decision of going public or publishing it on the website. And the third one is, and I listed a sales pitch is probably the wrong.
That's a wrong
term.
word, but the supporting a
But
rezoning. action.
yeah, that sounds much more.
But what would be,
classy.
in your, when you come back with information, actually say that if you change it to the green zoning from whatever it is at the current, this is what you gain,
This is the benefits.
this is the benefits,
Right.
Right.
but maybe have a small kind of category, okay, this is what you're losing, but
Well, yeah,
this is
but I
what
mean,
the
to
benefits
be
are.
fair,
Yeah.
we can understand that.
That's why I call it a sales pitch.
Yeah.
Twelve
trying-
font versus 8 font. This is what you pay.
So
Okay.
one question on this is that the properties that you mentioned that are, say, for instance, dark green, that are already zoned as those don't have any structures on them,
That's correct.
whereas most of the 490s.
May or may not. That's another factor I have to take into the
I think that,
analysis here.
well, some of the ones in the north part of town that I was looking at.
You'll also find that in the zoning regulations that they do allow structures on GC and GR facilities on those properties. They do allow structures.
Okay. Because a lot of times it's,
Yeah, that's what, it has to be done on a parcel by parcel basis.
Right.
Taking a look at what's on the parcel, that is it conforming or non-conforming, because then you'd have to be asking for a waiver or, to the zoning regulation.
It gets
Because
complicated.
Yeah, it can get complicated, but
Right.
if it's, but not to say it can't be done, it would just take additional documentation in the requests.
Right.
And this is where, are we going to, as a Conservation Commission, be willing to help support and advocate for the landowner? Because we see an ultimate goal of trying to get the 30% of the town properly zoned to,
It certainly helps that goal. Question is, what's in it for me if I'm
Yeah.
the 490 owner? Right, so
Right.
we will have further discussions on that at our next meeting. The next topic will be, I have the 2020 objectives on section 7. Let me bring that up. All right, so the list is getting shorter, by the way, so that's not a bad,
Not even a prayer.
oh, well, that's all right. You have your own personal copy, which I
Yeah.
sent you.
Send it to me again right now.
You know,
yeah, you can send me that link to.
I don't have internet here, so.
I'll-
well, then how about if I send it to you, how are you gonna get it?
Public Wi-Fi here?
Yes, there's public Wi-Fi. Okay.
I don't know what the password is though.
It's posted out there on, on the main hallway there.
I'll go see what it is.
Yeah, in the front, as you just come in.
we'll get the figures of it.
So what I want to do is kind of go through here. We've kind of been pushed this out for a while. think that went to her. Double check. Okay, sent to her. Let's go back to this. All right. If I'm looking at this and I'm going down the items, 211, 2.11, develop action plan, expand, the connect greenway, green belts and state greenways. That's going on. The last one in there was the submission to the state. The last note I saw you exchanging with Mark, he didn't get a feedback.
Well, our application for both greenways was reviewed by DEP and approved and forwarded onto the Greenway Council.
Okay.
The council met to act on them in March, but did not have a quorum, so they could not act on them. So the next meeting is next Tuesday at 9 a.m. in Weathersfield, and it's on the agenda. I've talked to the chairman of the Greenway Council, and he says everything is good to go. Should be approved, but no, there's hopefully
get a quorum.
enough people there to vote on it.
Okay, so that's that one is we're looking forward for approval in May at our May meeting. Okay.
Well, no, at the April meeting.
Oh, April, well, our May meeting.
Yeah, I'll record it next data.
Okay. Ann and Kristen, there was one on develop a program to prioritize and implement the selected strategies outlined in the municipal coastal program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This plan, along with the town of Groton Resiliency and Sustainability Task Force, will provide the basis for it. And I think it says here, the Trails Coordination Task Force is taking the lead. And this is the MS4 thing, which was coming to later. So I guess the net of that from next action is MS4. Is there any update on the MS4?
Whatever happened, I lost the thread of it. I wasn't able to attend whatever meeting they had. I was on town, so I don't know if Ann went.
And do you have anything on that?
No, I don't. I can reach out to Michelle Maitland, though. If I
Yeah,
didn't
I
hear
think
what
that-
Kristen said.
She said she doesn't know.
I was out of town for the meeting. I missed it, so I.
Okay.
Okay, yep, if you would check on that. The
I can-
next major,
I can do that.
okay. Yeah. All right,
But Larry,
just
Larry, I have a
Yeah.
question. I'm not sure it falls under this. There are new, or there will be workshops held in Mystic. I think that was somewhere in there with resilience, with this contracted out to a company to start doing public workshops and forums. Does anyone know what time, the time frame of those and when they're going to start? Bruce, I was hoping maybe you did.
Yeah, I think what you may be talking about is so we're doing a downtown Mystic sustainability and resilience.
Right.
We're actually interviewing the consultants tomorrow. We put out an RFP, we're interviewing the consultants tomorrow, so
Oh.
so we're anticipating 3 public workshops.
Okay.
The whole project needs to be done by November 2023, so I think from the proposals we saw probably workshops maybe in the fall, thinking fall through next winter.
Okay. Great, thank you.
all right. But we just talked about that 7.2.1.1.b is what we just talked about with 490 and evaluating those. And I'll just do the midterms rather than the long term. there was one here to change modify the central green belt. I thought that was done.
We've updated it in our plan, in the open space conservation plan, but it has, it's midterm because it's been 5 years, which will then roll into the update to the next EOCD update.
Okay.
We've got it all standby and ready to go as our inputs into their like hire the contractor to go do that.
When does that start? Six,
I would say.
Next year, I thought.
What?
Next year?
I don't know exactly when they've got, I know it has to be issued by 2016.
Right, so 2026.
Oh, like
So you
2026.
start in 2024.
well, they, that one was late. Because
But I don't know when how the
So-
timing is, they have to
I
be
don't- I
done
don't
earlier
touch-
by
yeah,
2026.
They usually run a little late.
I think it kind of just, no one goes back and checks when the last one was, this one's only good for 10 years. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, so I think we talked
Well,
about that, if it should start in 2024. something like that.
and a half.
Yeah, 10 and a half. We'll probably start that project probably in 2024 and finish it up around 26. It takes 2 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes longer. It's all in process.
So did you guys put it in is that a CIP or is that just part of your basic program?
Probably put it in CIP. I don't think it's in there yet, though.
Last time they did it in-house. Or no, they had a contractor,
Yeah,
pretty
a
much,
contractor.
they were very unhappy with the contractor. 2000, they brought in a guy out of Avon and did a great analysis of everything, spent some money on it. And then this next one was not as heavyweight. So I don't know what they're gonna do. But they have to raise some money in order for the printing costs and for the
Oh, yeah.
time and so
Contracting.
forth. Yeah,
Or sort of-
right.
All right, so I guess the next year's budget, it'll probably first come up, because it's 22, 23, that'll be 23, 24. So we probably should put a footnote for our budget. Just ask the question.
That's really a staff thing.
No, it is a staff thing. I'm just, it's more of a, is it in there?
Okay.
We try and help the staff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's see, let me get next midterm one. Another 490 program question, so that's already been addressed. Designations of Greenbelt, that's, we talked about that. Pursue Greenway integration, seek out, well, that's continuation there. Well, maybe we're doing all this stuff. The document review process of the Connecticut NERD. Now, that was just, I think the last one was, it's now official and approved. And the question is, now what? Is there any?
Let's have an opening ceremony, I thought. I haven't seen the announcement.
I haven't
for that.
either. But yeah, it's this month. I think they were talking about April. But that's just yay, we got it.
Yeah, we got, yeah, is there,
It doesn't say what happens after.
well, I guess that, is there
Right.
something we could kind of use from that, from the data collection? Because a lot of it is data, is sensors, data collection, et cetera. So is that early for that? Is
I
that
think it's
take-
still early.
be another year?
I don't know it depends on what the availability of money is for them. In other words, it's gonna get, they'll have to apply for federal money to run the whole thing.
That wasn't part of the approval process?
I think that, I don't know.
They've got that's a new website already, the National Estuarian Research Reserves, and they got a Connecticut National Estuarian Reserve now has its own website.
It's in there. Yeah, no, I think I went in there and saw it, but I was like, not, but where,
It doesn't look like it's that populated, but it's designated in 2022, University of Connecticut, 52,000 acres. It looks like it's up and running. They
So the
said.
website is, yeah, the information website, but as far as what particular programs are moving ahead and how do we dovetail
I guess
into
my
that?
question is, can you find out when, and it might be a year or 2 year, when would there be usable information coming out of the out of there. I mean, that's kind of like to put there as one of our long-term objectives, because it would be certainly useful for sustainability and the other stuff that's going on.
Mhm.
I mean, access to data is really what you need on some of this stuff. I'm working on the yellows. Another 490. Well, it's parcel team to identify relevant areas spelled wrong. Relevant sites for investigation with priority and pollinator pathways.
A lot of progress there.
The pollinator pathway lane.
Yeah, no, I'm actually making some outreach tomorrow.
Okay. So. 1.2.5.
How do you think you'll,
Well, we have to put together a steering committee, which is just involved, some garden clubs, some people from the town, just to kind of get together and agree that we want to go forward with this. And it's simply just making a resolution for town council. Like I used to have 2 people on the town council I was very comfortable going to. And I don't really know who those people are now. And I think they're a little inundated to, I'm trying to get some RTM people, just like a steering committee. We need a steering committee of people to move this forward, so.
because there's a lot more information out that's always coming out about
Oh, yeah.
pollinated pathways.
Yeah, and it's in, I think, New London's a member of this particular group,
Mhm.
it's just because it's a turnkey project, and it's just a matter of pulling some people together, going to the town and make, pulling people in, it's momentum thing.
All right, so you might have an update next
Yeah.
month on that. Okay. This next one is something that we actually don't have a focal point on, which is, expanding or doing something with the social justice statement we've had in our POCD.
That's a
Um,
midterm.
No, it's midterm. It's a midterm one.
I got your name next to it?
It's got nobody's name there.
It has
That's
my
it.
name, doesn't it?
Oh,
That
I'm
has my name.
sorry. There is a name there. I'm sorry. I was reading.
Yeah.
I was reading it wrong. So that
And
is-
I'm pretty close to, kind of getting some data. I just have to kind of collate it all. It looks like this is reworded though from what it was before. But anyway, yeah, I can
give me an input because I don't recall rewriting it. I usually only work on action status. Because this stuff typically came out of the actual plan, so that should not have been
Right.
reworded. This,
no, that was reworded. I think.
oh, that may be. So give me an update then. I'll be happy.
Oh,
get it.
well, I'm pretty close to, I can probably get you, I'll have something for you by the next meeting for sure. Hopefully before then. But
right.
it's really collating, yeah, so I have to really do the town part now. The city, I think I have a pretty good understanding, and I would say overall, there probably is inequity in terms of access to dedicated green space. There's a lot of managed and what's the other term? Green space. Yeah, in the city. So, but yeah, I'll get the numbers together and make a summary.
Super. All right. There are several members of the town council who are, I think, would be interested in what you come up with on this one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thames River Heritage Park. Boy, Tom, your name's on a lot of these.
Because, right now, I'm not doing anything with this as this is a long-term action.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't doing long terms. I was only doing, sorry. I stand corrected. I thought I hit the all midterm and short term. Let's see, this was, oh my Lord, a lot of writing here. This was the deed to funding land registries. Oh, this was a 30/30 thing.
Right.
Okay, so we do have an update. We just got an update on that. Stewardship plans and not an ordinance. We're gonna get an update on that.
That's the next section, right?
That's the next section, so it's there. Data center proposal. Okay, well, that one's, we could cut that one out. All
Yeah.
right. And yeah, I mean, I did meet with several, with GCA and some other folks on that one. All right, so we've gone through that. Next one is open space stewardship workbooks and action plan. And
Okay.
there's a bunch of things here, so just to do these in a little bit in order, you're second, Michelle.
Okay,
So the first one was an updated matrix from Tom. Let me stop that. Let me bring that up. Updated matrix from Tom.
This was attached in the packet,
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't hurt to bring it up.
page 20.
And share, where's share? Stewardship plan, section 7.
You're talking about this one?
There it is.
oh,
Yeah, that one. That one. All right, so the yellow has been yellow is,
Yellow is what's on the agenda for tonight, and everything else has been reflected, updated as far as when the last approvals were in place or what's still on hold.
no, the workbook is still, speaking of,
Yeah, I
work-
wanted to talk about that just for a second.
yeah, I was gonna say, do that, and then the other one's gonna take longer.
The reason I've got this on hold, just to talk about it, I guess is that GOSA is still waiting. I have provided that to them, but I really haven't gotten any comments other than it says, I don't have anything specific this time, but it's still being reviewed. They have a new stewardship lady that's working on their stuff, Mrs. Crittenton. And I haven't gotten any specific comments back on that. I was trying to report on that, but it is at GOSA, they acknowledge they have it. But the other thing is that they recognize that there's really it's not time sensitive because we're still waiting on.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question to Bruce. Any update on the Wolfbrook, getting that to conclusion?
I don't have any update to provide right now.
Is there some expiration date on the grant or anything like that?
There is, but the state is very flexible with it. I haven't heard any talk about it being expired or anything like that. So I don't see that happening. I don't think that's any issue that's gonna hold it up. It is a state expiration.
So you think it's still going forward? It's just the slow bureaucracy.
Um, Yeah, I could have put the meeting in progress sign up there.
Yeah, the key, that's more weird.
Yeah, no, yeah, they had keys.
Is that on the agenda?
I do think it's moving forward. I think there's some back and forth negotiation that has been occurring. I've heard different things. I haven't heard anything recently.
Those of us who
Okay.
donated money for falls through, do we get our money back?
Yes,
Asking for a friend.
the town would receive all money back. Yeah,
That's
I
true.
don't know about individual. I don't know about that.
Oh, no, we donated the money to the
Right,
Parks
yeah.
and Rec. We donated to somebody else, so they're gonna, I guess, keep it regardless.
Most likely.
I don't know how that worked.
Well, I guess,
Last I heard was very positive. I'll say that.
all right, I guess that we'll worry about.
So that's the
Progress,
status on that one. As far as the other one, as a result of the meeting that Michelle had, it was pointed out that there's a couple other parcels that GOSA would like potentially partner with us. So I quickly took that information on board and drafted up a new stewardship plan for what they call Lambtown Road. There's 2 parcels on, these are smaller parcels that normally would not have, made our cut. They're right at the 5 acre, between 4 and 5 acres. That's come, I didn't pursue them. But because they had showed expressed some interest, boom, I had the stuff I knocked this thing out in a couple hours. So I provided this to GOSA. They didn't have any corrections to it. So I think this is kind of ready to go as we presented any of the other stewardship plans. So it's already in our package starting at page 7. They want me to go through that.
Well, before we do that,
I just,
let's do the background information. So this memo the draft of the subcommittee?
Yeah, you could
Exact-
do this without that, but that's okay.
Oh,
You know, there was a side thing of the meeting, not the, so I think as long as Tom's working on the properties, we should just finish that, right?
Are you on there?
You don't need to know about the meeting in order to, for
Approve it,
Tom,
right.
right, to approve Tom's new plan. So
Well,
I think he's on a roll.
I thought though that the plan included those parcels.
This plan has the two parcels that GOSA expressed interest. in.
Right, that's what I just wanted to,
The reason they expressed interest is because Michelle.
Because we were
hosted a
talking to
meeting.
them.
no, I think,
Oh.
this
Okay.
is a good thing.
All
I
right,
just
well,
wanted to
Is this
provide
something
I know,
that's already been set aside? Is this
Yeah, no.
property that,
this feels
This is
almost like
the-
an outlier, but that's
It's
okay.
town-owned property?
Yeah.
And this is up in Fieldcrest?
No,
No.
this one property, I don't think we want to talk about the properties. One property is up, it's
We don't
surrounded
have
by the town, it's up on, along the town border.
In the handout.
Yeah, it's in the handout, but just off of 117, between 117 and,
Oh, that new development up there?
yeah, and part of Chriswood. Okay,
Chriswood,
it was in Ledger, and Chriswood donated the a portion, but just short, just, I think, 4.9 acres to the town of, that was the town of Groton's open space contribution, and the rest was in the town of Ledger. Okay, but it kind of, because of the way they own the parcel, we ended up getting this triangular shaped parcel that's surrounded on the south end by GOSA, and then the town line on the north portion of it.
Is it goes to Avery?
This would be a GOSA Avery Farm, right? Property.
Yeah, I think the good news was that one of the unexpected
Oh,
outputs,
yeah, it's great, yeah.
which is good news, is that as a result of that meeting, there was two properties that are town-owned that GOSA said, hey, we're willing to provide stewardship and support for it.
Right.
Right, and so I think our job, before we actually get to review the proposal, is to say, do we, as a commission, do we support the recommendation that those two town-owned properties be either donated from the town to GOSA, or, so, what's the legal?
Well, that's, before you start going down there, I would say that we take a look at the plan here, because those are part of the recommendation processes, how to investigate that. I don't know if GOSA wants it or not. It's just, that's one of the
Yeah,
options.
they just
that-
offered to help taking care of it.
As far as,
Yeah.
particularly from a boundary walking perspective, because they already walk recorded the boundaries on both these properties, because of their abutting their abutters to us. So
Yes.
Where's the second one?
the second one is at the corner of Patrick Court and Lambtown Road. This is abutting the Candlewood Hill, Candlewood Ridge property. It's only about 1.8 acres or so on a corner lot at Patrick Court. There's a little subdivision back in there. This was again a donation to the town, a corner property, and half of it is wetland. And part of the swamp area that GOSA owns. That's on a named creek that goes into Haley Brook.
Which would be. Oh, jeez, what the frickin'?
So would that be, what it sounds like is that GOSA is putting forth on the table?
GOSA, they haven't committed to anything other than we would be interested in this. So because I didn't have any property, for them to even start taking a look at what our expectations would be and stuff, I said, I will generate the stewardship plan for these two parcels, because we don't have those. We were talking to, this goes back to what Michelle's meeting was all about. I really don't want to take away her.
So maybe we do need to do the meeting first, because
That's where I started, to
Fine.
provide the context.
fine, we'll do the meeting.
I just went for the plan, you guys are killing me. Okay, let me go back to the meeting.
Just felt like you were on a roll, that Tom was on a roll, figured. let him go. Okay.
Okay.
So, right, so so Tom and Ann and I, as the stewardship subcommittee, had a meeting with members of, well, one member of Apollonia, the Groton town chair. Okay. And then we had 3, 4. Can you scroll up so you can see, so people can see who was there? Because I have on there the list of people that we were with. Okay, so 3 people from GOSA. So Joan is the president, and the others who are involved with the group, I guess. And so we basically, we talked about, we met with them, we said the town has these properties, we have the plans, and we're looking for just input. We're trying to figure out what to do to execute our management plans. And this was like the first level discussion. And so, I thought it was a really good discussion. But I do have it recorded if at some point we need to review it. And I also did, I guess when I record, I'm not gonna get a transcript. So we have it, but I'm not sure we need it. So basically there are a handful of takeaways. One of which was not, I don't know if it's this on, well, yeah, we can get that. Okay. So the first takeaway was that we as the town need to develop our own stewardship manual to tell our stewards what we would expect them to have. So Avalonia has a published stewardship plan, but they're updating it. And they said they would give us their updated plan, and GOSA is in the process of approving
So
the
how
plan.
to
Right.
versus what
Right,
we
so you
have.
give them the plan, but then you say, here's, especially for our primary steward, like my vision, and obviously we have to decide all these things. My vision is for each parcel, each management plan, to have one person that's the head steward. And you give them the plan, but you also give them, here's how to be a head steward of a town-owned open space property, right? And so we can use the existing plans that are soon to be published plans that Avalonia and GOSA have sort of as a template idea. So I volunteered to start producing a draft plan of ours, but I don't have any of the new information from those guys yet, but we can work on it, right? So we should have a plan that says, here's who you talk to, if you need to, do certain things, here's how you do them. And we'll obviously spend time together deciding what all goes in that plan.
Does the town have such a stewardship
No,
plan?
this stewardship manual is how to, who do you talk to get rid of the trash?
No, that's why I asked.
That's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with that we don't have in these individual.
No, yeah, I agree. No, that was a good, that was a good output.
Really, yeah,
No,
this
no,
is,
good.
that's gonna be, I mean, this is gonna be, we have to have something
Yeah, I
like this.
agree. I'm just saying that the town have something like this.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, nothing I'm aware of either.
Okay, so this would benefit the town.
I'm sure there's some type of internal
Well,
policy.
and we'll
that
have to,
they
right, and we
but
would
it's nothing in
include,
writing, yeah.
that information in the, the manual.
We're gonna need,
once we
this
figure
is
it.
gonna take coordination with
And
the
time,
planning
yeah.
as well as public works
Works,
and.
yeah.
and-
Yeah.
Well, and
Mark,
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, all of it, right, right.
also.
Yeah, this is definitely the, coordinated, working
But I think our
together.
objective is that this is gonna be a more official town manual type thing.
Oh, yeah,
That we want to get to. So
Yes.
therefore, we are gonna have to involve the.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, no, that's good. This is good stuff. Okay.
And so the manuals should include things like working with the town to provide resources for stewardship. So like the Avalonia and GOSA, they have money that their stewards do, but we don't have money to give our stewards to do things. So we have to figure out what resources they need, how they would, that kind of stuff. Again, all that discussion will have to follow.
Well, we have 20,000?
Yeah, but that's not necessarily for us to take care of our property. Well,
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it's for.
That's acquisition.
That's acquisition money.
We're not gonna spend that on garbage bags and gloves and pickup things.
Or if we want to, or if we're gonna
Right.
generate some type of, either a new, we have to figure that out.
right, we'll figure that out. So I don't think it makes sense to try to do the
Okay,
details.
all right.
So the next thing is that, and this is kind of where Tom's, what he was trying to get us to approve comes in, is that if we identify parcels that are near Avalonia and or GOSA properties, and then if we have properties that are next door or near them, they're willing to talk to us about working together on those properties, right? So that's, and they both, they're both open to discussions. Nobody's promising anything. They want to make sure that we weren't trying to get them to do our work for us, but they are open to having those partnerships. In fact, and the GOSA said we might be able to help you train your volunteers with our expertise and that kind of stuff. So they're definitely open to those kinds of discussions. And then we thought we need to, so the question, I might not have these in the best order, but to probably prioritize the properties we want to focus on. And Tom had a good suggestion to, advertise in, the town publications, hey, we're looking for stewards for these properties. But we probably don't want to start advertising too much until we have the manual, right?
Yeah, no, and I still think, because we went to the RTM last year and we did get one out of the 40, we got one from each of the districts.
Well, if
That
that's,
was
right.
interesting. I mean, that
That's
to me is a
interesting.
good,
yes,
is a good coordinator or focal point. on it.
right, at least a starting point
A
anyway.
starting point, yeah.
And then another thing was, it'd be nice to have a few quick successes, obviously, so to get an idea. But then the other thing was to canvass abutters, local businesses, for potential stewards. Now, this was something that Avalonia brought up, the body brought up, but actually, I'm the one that came up with that idea for Avalonia when I was still active with the town committee. So the idea is you get, and this is Tom, what I was thinking is if we could get a map, like one of the maybe sub maps on there that just shows where all the properties are that need stewards, we could start looking, but basically look at the property, see who, go see who the butters are,
Done.
and send them letters or something saying, hey, we have, this property, we're looking for people willing to be stewards. And coincidentally, along with that, I was at a reunion with my female classmates from the academy. One of them lives in the northeastern corner, and she walks like 8 miles a day on GOSA properties and whatever. And she said she doesn't want a job as the head steward, but she'd be willing to, walk our properties and, give us information or whatever. So I already have one volunteer once we define the jobs, and so there's people are willing to do this. We just have
If
to,
you say, here's a task.
this is what we
not this
need done.
big-
Right.
Right.
So that was very hopeful for me. It's like, I already found one person who wants to walk on my property. Anyway. And then look for businesses to maybe sponsor them, like, you have to sign up as business sponsors or whatever, that's a possibility. And then one of the GOSA guys is big on, you need to have a name or branding for your program. So say, oh, I'm a town of Groton steward or whatever you want to, call them. But we could talk about that later. So those are the main takeaways that I put together. I don't know, Tom, do you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
I have nothing else.
Yeah, and did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No, you covered it very nicely, Michelle.
So the idea then would be that, okay, so I believe that the next step is to get the stewardship manual drafted. And then once we have the manual drafted, then we take the next step. We probably want to do the larger meeting with the full committee, the announce to the public, that whole thing, to see what other, what other ideas, what other interests we can get out of it. But I think we need that manual at least drafted before we do anything else.
I think the key thing behind the manual is there's a lot of questions that we really hadn't thought about relative to insurance and that type of stuff in regard to what can people be doing as on the town properties, are there any liability issues and all this kind of stuff? And that's really going to need to be part of that manual.
You can't use power equipment, I know that. Volunteers can't. on town
Weed
property.
whackers, I mean, so weed whacker power equipment?
Yeah.
So you can't have somebody out there with a weed whacker, really?
I never. This
Well, we
is town
definitely need to
property.
know who it is. And
Well,
they have-
but what I'm saying, so those are the kind of things that we
Right.
need to sort through all of that. But anyway, so I feel like this is a really good step forward. that we-
No, it did more than I thought it was going to be, quite honestly.
Because even when we did that walk audit, and Brett, you were there, and you remember, like, you had to sign something, like, we had to keep everybody's information, you kind of had to sign it.
Yeah. So we have to figure all that stuff out, but it's not impossible, it's just, we just have to do it. So we've got to,
Possible.
yeah, we just have to figure it all out.
Okay, any outlook on timing to get the step one?
I'm guessing since I still don't have either one of the updated manuals, I'm guessing we're probably talking a couple months. Because
Sure, you gotta get there.
you gotta get theirs first
Yeah.
to create ours. Now I could get started with the one that Avalonia currently has published. But I really want GOSA's information, so. Well, no, I'm not looking at you, I'm just saying that it doesn't make sense to try to put our draft together without
The
both
only
of
thing is
those
that
pieces.
I would like to, what we probably should be also doing, surveying and see if there's another town level one someplace else.
Okay, yeah,
another
that's a good point.
community that, because they would be answering a lot of these liability issues that the private agencies such as Ghost and Emily really have come from a different direction. Because they know they already have an insurance coverage because they already have that specific type of coverage. I don't know how we fall.
You know,
under the
that's something I
town.
might be able to ask Amy Patterson if she knows of any of, no, she works the groups, she works the towns. She works with the other land trust organizations.
Private stuff.
Yeah.
What about that council, the Connecticut?
Kakiwik.
Yeah.
That's why I said, checking with Kakiwik. Maybe even asking
Yeah,
their
that's a good
president to send an email, you know, just basically send an email to all of the Kakiwik members, or does your town have anything like this?
Anything like that, right.
Yeah,
All right. Now, having that groundwork, now we could go back to Tom.
Right. Now, as we mentioned, that there's two parcels that I'd like to, I've developed what they call Lambtown Road, open space, stewardship plan. It's very similar to all the prior ones that we had. It's all included in your packet, starting on page 7. There's just two parcels. One's, like I mentioned, that's totally landlocked. It's called 0 North Road. But it's an old development for what I call the Chriswood parcel, and then the 1.8 acres at Patrick Court. We have the pictures and stuff, and it's all, both of the parcels are basically woodland, with the exception of Patrick Court has some mowed area where there's a sign for the estates. And then the only other unique thing about the Chriswood parcel is that half of it, the lower half of it, it has stone walls on it. So
Is the part that's mowed, is that?
No.
By the town?
We discussed this a couple of years.
Glad they had a
while back.
picture there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this part, stop right here, I think. This was interesting because this parcel, it's in the light blue, and I have about 5 or 6 blue dots on the parcel. Because there's Town of Groton Conservation Easement area postings at each of those dots.
oh,
Never seen.
well, that's
those
what you're
before.
doing here, okay.
That's what I'm showing here is that
Got
that little medallion is nailed on trees wherever there's a
And
blue
those,
dot.
where those dots are.
Yeah. And it also kind of represents the area that's mowed. From the street to the blue dots is what's being mowed. Now, is that being encumbered by the locals there that are doing that? I don't know who, if they take turns in the subdivision or whatever, but that sign is clearly on town property. It's clearly being mowed and everything on town property.
We actually got GPS points of all those,
Oh, yeah.
where the blue dots are, okay.
But I mean,
You're talking to Tom here, come on.
Is this,
I didn't know.
is this the? This is a question that I need to have somebody review for me. How many easements does the town carry?
I've only tracked down 13 so far that we put into the open space plan. I'm not aware of any other, not to say they don't exist. This is the first time I've ever seen a designation.
Yes.
I kind of identified this a couple of years ago. I brought it up because when I first found it, when I was going by these, because I was on a boundary walk with Ghost a couple of years ago, because they do it in January. They actually, and I've assisted them on this boundary walk here, and that's where I ran into it. That's kind of the other blue dots are also, I got those from the Ghost boundary walk.
Is the green Goza property?
The green is the Ghost property. Dark green is the Goza property.
So the technical definition of the town of Groton easement is what?
I think, my personal opinion, and I'm totally, this is hypothetical, I don't have any documentation on this, is that when the town is receiving this from the developer,
Right.
sometimes the planning department has told them to put up these big posts and stuff in the ground.
Yep.
But there's no designation of those. But other times they may have, the developer may have said, I'm putting these up for you. Okay, and I think this is something unique to that, because this is the only place I've seen them in the whole town. Is on this one,
Post, just nail
Yeah.
on the tree.
right?
The post least around where we are, it's
They don't rot.
disintegrated.
Yeah.
It's
How
all
big an
rotting.
area is
falling
that?
down.
What?
How-
It's a 1.8 acres, is it, and that's Candlewood, Ridge parcel, which I think is 69 acres or something in the green for Gosa. Each one of those are 1 acre
So,
lot.
well, that begs to say that the town holds the easement.
No, the town owns that parcel. That's what's kind of confusing. That's what I'm saying. The town owns that whole, everything in the light blue, the town owns. That's 1.8 acres that the town owns. It's its own property.
So why would it be any town easement?
I
then?
don't
Yeah.
know.
I-
The question is, should we be taking these down because we actually own the property?
Well, I think we should pose that question to the town staff. That says, do you care? And.
Well, yeah, what's the legality right now? What's the legal status, basically?
The legal status is the town owns the property as open, it's
So there's no
it's
easement,
deeded
there's
as
no
open
easement
space.
issue at all there.
The town
No,
owns it and it's
it's signage.
dedicated open space.
Yeah.
It's a signage question.
The only legal issue right now is somebody encroaching on the town property by mowing it and putting signs up.
Does it, where it's mowed, does that enhance the property? Does it enhance that neighborhood?
If you want to go down page, keep going, next page. Okay, that's the mowing on the left-hand side, mowed area. And this is looking from Lambtown Road, looking west, along Patrick, the road there is Patrick Court.
So the sign is on town property?
The town is clearly on town property.
What's that?
Yeah, what's it say?
The town says, the sign says, Mystic Woods. Mystic Woods.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, are you sure that it was so the town
The
owns?
dot, yeah, the dots are on the trees that along the edge there on the right-hand side of the picture.
Well, how do we know that the
So
conservation easement area is just a
They're-
portion?
I don't, they're just signs that are up there. I haven't found any easement. The town owns that whole parcel. There's no easement
So
issue.
it's a mystery to be solved.
Why they're posted there. I
That's
have
why
no
we're
idea.
saying, could the town staff tell us what
I
the
wonder
hell?
if it's some,
Probably in the
in,
subdivision
when they
plan.
developed it.
Yeah, I don't know, but
The
that's what I
town,
don't have the information.
the town initially had an easement on it and somehow
Maybe, I
Whatever
don't
it-
know.
an association or let's say, or something.
Yeah.
Decided we're not going to support it anymore or whatever. So the town just took it, but left the,
Well, for the deed, everything, they parceled this whole area out, to the individual. So this is the give to the town, the 10% give was this parcel. Because half of it is all wetlands. They couldn't get a full
whole lot to build.
lot to it.
Well, that's what I'm thinking those markers on the trees may be. It's not actually a conservation easement. It's a wetland buffer that was placed on the property. So they cleared up until where they weren't supposed to clear anymore to leave a wetland buffer between there and. the
That may
wetland.
be something too.
But the terminology isn't correct. It wouldn't be a conservation easement, it'd be a
That,
protected area.
That's all we're kind of questioning.
Yeah.
And we could figure that stuff out.
well, if we want to add an action item to go investigate the conservation easements, when we get to that section, I'll.
Okay, no, I would say is ask the town to resolve, they should take those little things down. Or address the signage in a way that doesn't confuse people.
Yeah. Tom, if you want to come in the next couple of weeks, we can look at the plans.
Okay.
I'll get them out for you.
Tomorrow will be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I have interviews all day tomorrow.
Okay.
All right,
Wednesday.
so where would you like me to go next?
Okay, so now just continue on, we can keep going down the next sections. This goes into the standard, where the locations are. You can kind of see where the blue flags are. In the upper, left-hand corner is the triangle area. That's totally surrounded by Gosa property, for their Avery Farm. And
Is that
then-
landlocked?
that's totally landlocked, other than the in the middle of that, going from the southeast corner up to the central portion there, that is a Eversource power
That's the
line.
power line.
That's an
Yeah,
Eversource
okay.
power line. And so there's, Eversource has from Lambtown Road there, in the center of the picture, toward a little bit to the right, along that whole power line access, that you can walk that. It's
Yeah, I have walked that, yeah.
yeah, and it's nice, it's drivable, actually, okay?
Yep.
All the way into Ledger, okay? That's the only access that you have. And then from Chriswood Trace, the street there's an informal pathway to that path right now. Right. And along the bottom edge, that whole southern border right there, it's all stone wall. And then the other one's down Patrick Court is in the right-hand corner there, where the subdivision is on one Lambtown Road that we already talked about in details, okay? From a resource perspective, I've got the goals is just protection of the Haley Brook there for both properties and the carbon area. There is some, and I noted the hiking I just talked about with the Eversource access. Okay, next page. This is, taking a look at the parcels from the hydrology. They're both pretty flat areas because there's really not anything of uniqueness. A little bit sloping down into the wetland area there. That's actually more on the Groton property, and that goes into the lake, the pond there that they have. There is one unique thing: is the storm drain from the street goes straight into the across the property here. There's also another road culvert that comes off of the property under Lambtown Road. I noted those as far as from the flood zones because it comes up on the and then the soils are pretty typical. What?
If the wetland overflows, it picks up that culvert?
Yeah, what culvert dumps right into the wetland.
Okay, so it's going from the road to the culvert to the wetland.
Right.
Okay.
I assume that was all approved by inland wetlands and when they zoned the whole thing or did the reviews at that time. So very typical, glacial type of soils here. Nothing to really comment on here. Nothing unique. Next page. And these are the land coverage. It's all pretty, other than the you can see where the across the top there where the power line goes. That's all shrubs as opposed to heavy woodlands. Likewise for both parcels. Next is the natural diversity. The upper parcel is not part of the natural diversity, but the lower parcel is 100% inside the natural diversity area. So it's high, good value. Likewise, also for the resiliency map is pretty much the standard. And the next pages are just the continue along there. The aerials just for documentation purposes. And again, no historical or recreational summary because there aren't any hiking other than the hiking trail through the center line of there. Now, if this does abut or crosses it kind of splits because the green belt goes up to the Gosta property. So it's somewhat supporting, but where the Gosta properties are going through the green belt, so I included that into the.
All right.
Okay. So then, yeah.
In Ledyard, on the triangular piece, right at the border, the town of Ledyard has the property.
Yes, town of Ledyard owns that as a conservation. It's through. I don't think it's with their concert. It's not one of the prime things that the Conservation Commission is monitoring, but it's town property.
As open space.
As open space, it's town open space. It was dedicated the same as we received it in the deed. Okay, and then so we get down to the management things.
Oh, here's my,
What'd you do?
I'm still trying to get back to. Where's that? Oh, I know why, because it automatically, I was teeing up the next one.
Oh, okay,
Sorry about that.
no problem.
Didn't think it would do that.
You get from multi-cast.
Yeah. Oh, I know why, because it switched from here to there.
Okay, there we go. The next page is the management timeline. These are just the standard stuff. The township,
So here's their boundary marker. That would be to
Right.
clean up the
Right.
easement,
that's right.
the medallions or whatever the hell those things are. Okay,
There are a number of evasives, particularly on the, to be able to get into the Patrick Court parcel. And so this is a very standard to what we've seen on the other stewardship plans, the area cleanup, the marker areas, survey area for any kind of trash and signage if necessary. I didn't really see that much, so I didn't really document it. Any couple little pieces along Patrick Court, but and then the new one here is I will add one to resolve the conservation easements signage issues. I will add that as an action item. And then the full parcel was evaluate potential for incorporation of the parcels into the budding GOSA properties. And that's really a long-term type of thing as far as a potential deed change for the town to turn this stuff over somehow. You know, whatever's creative that we could potentially develop. I'm not going to really speculate at this point how to do that, but it's one thing we may want to investigate. If also if GOSA wants the things to have better protection of them. Now they are open space in the town, so it is dedicated open space, but it depends on whether the town wants to maintain ownership or GOSA wants to absorb it into theirs already. We'll let, that's a future discussion. That's what I.
no, it's in there. Okay, that's fine. All right,
I move we accept with the extra action item.
any additional discussion? And I remembered you this time.
No more discussion.
All right,
For me.
So I'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the stewardship plan with the minor modification of the evaluation of the medallions, signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2,
Aye.
3, 4, 5. All right, unanimous. Very good. The next item is related to this, which is the Lambs Road thing. And I have that document, Tom. That's what I was teeing up. Well, you asked a question of 341 Lambs Road? The easement, that you had a question of, that you wanted to add to the agenda, question on the conservation easement at 341 Lambs Road.
I remember what this is now.
I think your question was, what's that easement mean?
Oh, going down on the page here. Okay, 341 Lambtown Road. Okay, so this is a issue at 341 Lambtown Road. It says there's 50-foot right of way. You went past. Yes. Okay, right in here. It talks about if it has a 50-foot right of way in a note page 8, it said plan for the warranty deeds. From page on to grant the exit of the the records here is that I think we need to do some investigation into this to see you know what is there some right of way with the town that we have to be worried about, and is this so with that right of way, was there a conservation easement attached to it? And we need to pull up the details. If Bruce, I will take an action with Bruce when he has, before he leaves here, to get access into the records, because you can pull up that page number and notes and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, well, I'd probably pull the if you came in, I can pull that subdivision plan and we could look at what those notes
Okay,
say.
so we'll take that as
Downstairs
a
here.
separate action.
Okay.
I wasn't realizing that was part of this.
You asked for it to be on the agenda.
What's the plans that you have here? How are they different from what might be done in the town hall?
It's down at the town hall, I grant you, but I don't have it accessible online. So I have not gone in.
It's not
and
all,
all the
online. It's
full
not
stuff.
all
Digitized.
digitized, yeah.
It's not digital.
Okay,
The town hall has all the subdivision plans, just like we do. We keep a copy down there that's recorded and.
Oh, okay.
all right, next is, let me get stop share. Next on the agenda item is the 2022 budget recommendations. Tom did present to the town council
Right, I mean, and that's attached on in our packet here, page 21, as far as the statement I read and I just point out to you that, we looked at the last meeting, we knew that that the planning department had submitted the CIP at the projected $25,000 rate. And what I did, I kind of went off a little bit more than that. I suggested to the town as part of my public hearing statement to take a look at what was done last year as far as that the POCD in 2016 said you ought to be putting a CIP program together. The CIP program was started in 2020 for initial funding in 22 at $25,000 per year level funded in the future. For the first year of it, you cut it to $10,000. So why don't you consider, because a lot of that was COVID based and unknown what things were happening, consider restoring that money this year, because we've already depleted the open space acquisition fund down to zero already. Okay,
It got depleted because.
of Wolf.
Okay, got it.
Okay, for the surveys and all this other kind
Right.
of stuff that were done, okay, which is what it's supposed to be used for. It was
Right.
used appropriately, but we're down to zero right now. You cut it last year, and you ought to consider as part of your deliberations, to increase it to 40,000 is my suggestion to the town council. Okay. So I don't know what's going to happen. Looking at the agenda, the CIPs come up all night tomorrow, and then whatever left over on Saturday morning. So last year we got kicked to Saturday morning. So I kind of suspect that's what's going to happen this year. Yeah, just because there's so many other CIPs in front of us, because they go 0 through 9 and we're in the 8s.
Have you heard anything?
Nothing's happened on this at all. But I know there's some sympathetic counselors but none of them have reached out to me after my suggestion, but they normally don't in the budget process. So we'll just have to kind of monitor, see what happens. And at least we made a statement to advocate for something.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, next one is the Yukon Project 2022. I just got this today, actually. That's not the. Let's see, where did it go? That's the open space one. That's not it. I had it, I thought I had it teed up. All right, give me a second. And let me,
Is it on the agenda thing?
it's not on the agenda
No.
thing, 'cause I just got it this morning. Okay. So let me stop share there. Let me share screen here. And all right, so there's a meeting this Friday with myself, John Reiner, and the Yukon team. As you recall, last meeting, we said we're trying to get some handle on the carbon emission measurement stuff. This is not, this to me doesn't look like a working model. So I got some questions on it. But I think it partly is this, how are we progressing towards the 2030 goal? So don't read anything into the data at all. So this is kind of what they want to come back with eventually. And then there's a view of if I'm building or I have a residential property, what's the greenhouse gas emissions there? And if I have the commercial property, right, and transportation. So those were the three areas that we asked them to kind of provide a model so that we can, as plans come in to the town, that we can assess, put some number on it. Right? This is the impact you have. So therefore, then one could take some action on it. So then there's also, let's see, There's the impact of this solar. They took a whack at social cost of Connecticut carbon emissions. Like I said, I just got this like an hour ago, well, an hour before this
Look at it in
meeting.
more detail
Well, there's no detail in it. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
this is a representation of what they want to come up with. So
Mhm.
I'll know more Friday when we have our meeting and I can ask them questions on what's in this stuff. You know, and these are data points on how they're calculating and assumptions I think they're using. We'll have to ask them where they got that data from. But one would hope there's a manual that says, you know, how do you know it's 14.2 kilograms of CO2 per gallon? Where'd that data come from, right? That kind of stuff. So that's kind of it. So it's slowly making progress. But it seems to, my first guess, it seems to be along the lines of what we were looking for, is to provide a tool to the town staff so that they can calculate on any new development submission, you know, kind of come up with a number. Here's how you rank or rate, and whether that gets translated over time that says you get a tax benefit if you're under a certain number, or you have a tax liability for over a certain number. You know, those are political issues. We're trying to provide baseline information that would allow those proposals and or, you know, kind of decisions to be made. So that's kind of where we're going. How else do you get there? You have to have incentives and you have to have penalties, you know, in order to get to where you want to be.
And know where you are to get to where you are.
And you have to know where you are. That's correct. And where you want to be. So, you know, so I guess it's the thought process. You know, we had a couple of meetings, so they seem to have captured the thought process. How good the data is, other than that, I don't know yet. Right. So I can't endorse it yet. So, and this is public information that could be used in Rhode Island too, so. All right, we're not gonna copyright it. Okay. So, I mean, any questions I can't answer on that one? That was more of an update. All right, status of unprotected parcel. So we sent, from our last meeting, we sent a letter to John Burt. Let me, just to remind you of that, I believe that's here. Parcel recommendations, yes, there we go. And let me go back to share again. Webinar, share. I mean, there is something to be said for this hybrid meeting. It's easier to bring things up.
Glad you brought a computer. That's a good idea.
Okay, so
The town doesn't have one here that you can use?
No, we do. We didn't really think about that. We just kind of thought, because we never used to do that, remember? Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
yeah,
it's-
well, I mean, at home, it's a lot easier to organize and be able to throw stuff up. So that's all. Anyway, this was the memo on March 8th, which was right after our last meeting. So based upon the motion, I put this, which was kind of an update from October 14th, that went through the history. This was in the handout, right? In general,
No, no,
was it?
it wasn't in the packet, no.
No. All right, this is a restatement of what was there. Then, at our last meeting, I kind of went through the analysis and kind of reduced it and got down to these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 6 parcels. Or 5 parcels, because I can't count. Oh, 5 parcels plus 1. And that was the one that was thought of for zero plan zones for the data center. So at the time I wrote this, I said, I ain't gonna get into that right now. So I'll just leave that inside and go after these other 5 that says these should be designated open space, and they are not. So my question is, Bruce, I have not heard anything back from the town manager on our request. Is this something that, you know, that I need to push and say, I want to get forward to the town council? in order to vote on transfer. I mean, nobody's gonna build on it, other than Flanders Road. None of those other things are buildable. Matter of fact, some of them are landlocked, can't even get to the damn thing.
So what's your goal? You want the town to go through the official process of,
Designating these as formalized open space, because they are not now protected.
There isn't anything that says in the deed that it's open space.
But it's town property.
It's town property.
Yeah.
but it's town property.
That's a smart thing to do, and that helps get towards the goal.
We did put a statement in for the properties that we bought a number of years ago, recently, within the last 5 years. Something on top of it that said it's open space.
But those are only the properties that have been deemed to be open space. So
Right.
these properties haven't yet been assigned a
Anything,
use.
right?
So I mean, you could go through the process and someone from the town said, well, I want to put a pump station there. I mean, that could happen.
I
You know,
suppose.
it could also be that we want to dispose of this property and sell it.
But I said, they're landlocked and you can't build on most of them. Remember the one with the 4?
Well,
Yeah, I'm not saying that would happen. I'm just saying the process isn't just to dedicate these parcels at open space. It's to identify,
To make that decision.
is to make that decision and identify the best use for the property, which could very well be open space.
I guess
Most
my
likely.
question, originally when we were working this list, we had, I think, we're 50 parcels that were not, I couldn't find any type of identification on the deed that there were open space dedications to them. And I guess we culled that down to the larger parcels that we want to take action on. And then we also referenced you back to the 2005 timeframe. I think there was some, I provided information in regard to what was done in the past when when it was taking the town council for action. So,
Yeah, I mean,
I
like
got
this
two
one, if you
questions.
can't get to it, right? It's,
Well, it doesn't matter about getting to
Well,
whatever, but by putting, by annotating the deed, similar to what was done for the Mortimer Wright parcel. Okay, we said that it's going to now be, going to be maintained as open space by the town, if from a land use perspective. All right. Well, that's what we're trying to get to provide additional level of protection for the parcel,
yeah, so we sent the request in
right?
based upon the motion we agreed to last meeting. I haven't heard anything back in a month or so. So now my question is, I want to push a little bit, at least on these 5 parcels, and is the process to say, I want to go get before the town council, or is there a process within the town staff? So
What does
that,
he push?
what do I put? And so
No, we
the
have a
staff
meeting with,
meet with the staff, and staff says, we agree, and then they make the recommendation to town council.
Well, I sent you guys all the process. Or I forget what the committee is called, but there's a certain group of town officials that meet and discuss this, and then the town council makes the final decision on what to do with the property. Who initiates that? I mean, the
So
town
when is the
manager
next-
would.
When is the next meeting of that august group?
I mean, I don't think they've met in a very long time, but so well, what came out of this? So you as a commission were asking, what is the formal process for this?
Well, no, we did get the process, but the question is, but it's never been used before, and we're trying to get the process engaged.
Not everybody knew that process was in place. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
So-
okay.
so-
Yeah,
so-
okay, yep.
So it was good that came out of that is that people who didn't realize we had the process now realize we have the
They're alerted to
process.
the process.
Right.
Now are they alerted to the fact that they have to actually implement the process for
Right.
these properties?
And
That's what, I mean, you alerted the town manager. You could speak to,
The other members of the committee.
the other, so tax department, Mary Gardner, I would talk to her. She would really be initiating it. There's also someone else in the tax department. I
So
can't remember
the
who it is.
document that was sent was a process document, didn't identify that I can recall, the members or who's on that committee.
It doesn't say, no.
Could you get me that list? That seems to be the place to start.
If I can get you a list, I will. If I can't get you a list,
I'd like to know
email
that.
you and let you know who's on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's, there should be 10, but there's only 2. then that's information. In other, whatever you can get me, then it'll give me something to go after.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's the tax department. I think it's the town manager. It's probably someone from planning and development services. I'm sure someone from public works is a representative. I'm sure Parks and Rec is a representative. I think it's a lot of different department heads that come together.
So okay, so here's when you sent that letter, did you request that this group, I mean, I don't remember what the letter says. Does the letter request that group to meet, or does it just say,
Well, no,
you go back
because
to the,
Yeah, I'm not sure how clear that.
yeah, so if you go scroll up, Larry, so we can actually see the wording of the letter.
and request the town council vote to add open space protection. to
That's the
site
problem.
property.
You requested the wrong thing.
Well, I didn't have,
I know, but I'm just saying,
well, but
Right.
I still didn't get an answer.
I understand that.
Well, the ultimate, the town council is the final decision.
Right.
So,
In the process, you have to go through, so I can say, well, gee, before we go to town council, we have to go through this other part of the process. That'd be fine. I didn't get anything back.
well, and I think the problem is because it's not even obvious who initiates a meeting. Whether it's, the town council says, you guys have to meet to do this, or does the town, I mean, like, it's not even, from what I'm hearing, it's not even obvious.
Well, that's what I'm trying to
That
do.
they don't know what their process is.
That's why I'm
Right.
trying to, how do I initiate the process?
All right, my suggestion would be, so you have an email chain where you and Tom, I think, were inquiring, what is the process for determining the status of a town-owned parcel that doesn't have any designation? You have an email chain of that. And what came of that is they sent you the process for how a parcel would go from not being deemed anything to being deemed open space or
A
otherwise.
generic process.
So what I would do is I would remind them of that conversation. Them being the town manager, I would start with him. Say, we would like this memo that you just referenced to go through this process we talked about, back in November of last year. If you're not the correct contact to initiate this process, how can we try to make this happen? Because we see the value in open space on these properties and we're willing to, pitch in our ideas.
We
and
don't see
information.
any development value, at least that's our now.
You can say that too, but I mean,
Well, we did. In this
Well,
letter.
yeah, but I think what I'm hearing, so basically, you need to let, you, because you're our leader, you need to find the person to say, please start this process. The
and
person-
remind them of what
Right.
I think I
specific
gotta go, I think it's
process.
worse, but I gotta go back
Well,
again.
it sounds like it almost be if you have a list, send it, like.
That's why I
and
said,
copy-
get me.
And
who
copy the rest of them
people are.
saying, we request,
Yes.
the Conservation Commission is requesting that this process be
Right.
initiated for these parcels.
That's why I need
Yeah.
who are the people? Right?
Does
are
that
on the-
sound reasonable for what we
committee.
mean? Does that kind of, Cliff knows what you just said, say, get those people to say, please initiate the process for these
Yes,
parcels.
Give me
Yeah,
the
no, I think
names,
so.
I'll do the hit slap.
Yeah, because right now they may not be connecting
The
that
dots.
process. and this memo.
That's what it feels
and
like
what
to
you
me is
want,
there, someone needs to connect the dots for them.
Okay, I hear you.
the letter could have been a little bit more, all she's saying, is the letter could be a little more clear.
I'll be
but-
more than happy for
Well,
someone
no,
else to
it
write.
would have
these
been,
letters.
it would have been nice if they responded to it that way, but
Yeah,
since they
like I
haven't.
said, I did not.
But
Since
now
they
that
haven't-
once you've given them a month, it's a budget season right now.
Yeah.
Some COVID stuff and designations, the guy's busy, I won't argue
Okay,
that.
so,
Data
yeah.
center didn't help either.
Data
No,
centers.
data center screwed everything up.
The next step is Coke again,
Yeah.
only add people to the list so that someone in there might say, well, yeah, come on, guys, let's just do this, right? Maybe not, but they might.
Okay, well, all right, so that's that. Actually, we did the MS4 audit under the section 7. We discussed the town budget. We actually discussed the commission app update. Did that. The next item is Groton affordable housing. There was a email from
To me,
Mr. Olson.
I know, if you notice, there is a public hearing coming up tomorrow night at, I think, 6:30. In regard to the town of Groton Housing Authority master plan. That's how I would portray it. It's about a 60-page presentation that's posted on the town website. It's going to be discussed and they're looking for comments. And so I reviewed this document over the weekend and came up with, there's the word open space is used on 3 pages of it, okay? It's all in the recommendations area. They're recommending, in the summary of recommendations is a short-term and midterm zoning changes to encourage housing growth and leverage public land for housing production. Again, short-term and long-term is 0 to 2 and 3 to 5 years. And then on the details of that, the zoning changes to encourage housing growth is consider adding an open space subdivision district with smaller lot size requirements, possibly in the 5 to 10 acre range. Current district requires 20 acres. And then the second one area that I had concern with was that leverage public land for housing production. This goes into consider a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet, but preference for larger sites to be accommodate multifamily units, use of property, ensure there are no other competing public uses for the property and no plans for other town or school district departments for future use of property, use housing type to be compatible with or not conflict with existing neighborhood character. And then zoning property should be an existing residential or mixed use district or overlay zone. And then it goes into a bunch of other infrastructure, property location and environmental considerations. And I guess from my personal concern, when I see another group out there, which is a contractor, RKG, puts recommendations together as how to go use open space, dedicated open space lands, is that, should we be commenting on that at this time at the public hearing coming up tomorrow?
This seems like another example of there needs to be a more clear, open to public process. Like this is already down 60 pages down the line. It's already like, sounds like it's already kind of.
I don't know exactly
I'm
what,
not sure what the hell it meant when I read through that.
Yeah.
It sounds like a land grab a little bit.
well, their recommendations from the contractor are clearly a land grab. And rightly so. I mean, this is a town commission for housing that they're trying to keep the cost down. We saw these same people come up during the discussions for the Knowing school space. They came in with very late to the,
Right, yeah, here's this, right, they
Yeah.
came in with a proposal for X amount of housing.
in the 5 acres there.
Because again, why are they always going after the open space? There should
Because
be.
they want free land,
Free
because they
land.
want to minimize the
I
cost.
know, but we should be looking at redevelopment. You're looking at derelict, derelict
But what does
areas.
the town doesn't own any derelict areas,
Right.
okay? This is a town agency.
I don't think we as taxpayers should be supporting.
You're saying, but I think
Contractors.
I'm confused that what they're saying is town. I don't want to be redundant with.
Dedicated open space, because right now, if it's not facilities that the school board's managing or Public Works is managing, and it's not a managed open space where Parks and Rec has already got something, they want to go after dedicated open space because there's nothing
There's
there
nothing
right
there.
now.
So what's an example of dedicated open space?
Right now, let's go, what we said, right by the Joel property on Peconic Road, okay, across or next door to the EV parking lot there. Okay, that'd be, you could put some property in there. There's housing in this on the city side. You could put some housing in there in theory.
The Joel property is not protected?
I don't know, it's on our list of the 5 that we gave the other day here. I don't know. I thought that was one of them.
Well, I'm really confused because if land is.
But see, if it's, again, they're going after anything. They just want something that they can put on. They don't care if it says open space or whatever.
If the terminology, the land is dedicated open space, then it's dedicated to being open space. It's not developable land if it's dedicated open space.
Nothing is final.
Right, that's why that's why. it goes
That-
down.
This kind of goes back to what, that they see this as available property that because the town doesn't have.
So
a clear
I think your
land use-
point is,
Right.
given that's the case, we should go there and say, time out, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we strenuously object to a land grab on dedicated open space to go build houses on.
Right.
It's against everything we've just worked
Right.
through,
Yeah, but
period. That's it. I mean,
Land like anybody else.
you know,
If they said town-owned property.
This is leverage public land for housing.
Right, but if you said town-owned property that nothing's been built on, for instance, then
But that's okay.
that's okay.
That's not,
But to reverse a piece of property that is dedicated open space is not okay because they can theoretically do
So
anywhere.
I guess your example would be, you already have again, this, again, going back along Paquonic Road and then also, you got the Kolonowski School area. Okay, there are a number of little parcels that are nearby the public housing area there, whatever that, I forget if it's Pequot Woods or whatever it's called there. There's a public housing area right there on Paquonic Road.
Oh, right behind, used to be Gordon.
There's a church there and a couple of other things
Right,
along
right,
there.
right, yes.
You go under.
And then behind that is the Kanowski property.
Kanowski property.
Right,
okay?
but there's a
So-
huge rock. That's why it stopped.
I hear you, but there's, if you take a look, there's like probably 4 parcels that are town-owned now. A good example would be right at the foot of the Kalinowski School entrance. There's 2 parcels there that we're trying to sell, and the town just took those on for closure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the kind of property that they would be looking for. That was on our list.
those are, yeah, no, but we agreed those weren't gonna be open space. They
Yeah.
said, you wanna sell them, sell them.
Yeah.
We weren't, right. So the objection isn't to taking over town-owned property. It's a taking over town-owned property that's designated as open
Right,
space.
clarifying that in there.
Right.
Okay, so when is this gonna happen?
Tomorrow at 6:30.
Do we have a volunteer to go?
I will gladly go talk to these people. I already
He's
put it
read
on-
the things like, God bless you, Tom, by the way.
Yeah,
We are going to anoint Tom to go make that statement.
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
We
so
support.
anointed. You
Okay.
can speak with the full authority, such as it is.
Like
Like
contractors
Conservation
have to go
Commission.
buy land like anybody else, and if it's not, if it's too expensive, then.
No,
for them to
no,
buy
it's
it.
okay. It's okay if they use town property, like some of these other ones.
This is a town, housing development group.
Right.
So it's
not a private contract.
it's not a private contract.
The
It's private contract.
contractor came up with the recommendations, and now they're getting the public comment. Through a public hearing on the recommendations and stuff
But they come up with it for the town.
for the.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, using town property is okay, just not
Not our property.
not our property, not designated by the town as dedicated.
Right,
open
that's
space.
our property.
That's our collective property. Okay, that is. Check. Now the report of chair. The only thing I had, I guess is to mention Tom is sporting the back whack April 6th meeting.
Yes, I'll be going to
He
that.
said he was
That's
gonna
on
go to that, so-
Wednesday.
You can report on that at our next meeting. Next meeting. And that gets us down to report of staff, and Bruce was at the cause 2022.
I did go to the cause 2022 training. It was a half-day training, focused a lot on wetlands and wetland science. But yeah, I did attend that.
Anything of note?
I mean, nothing I haven't really learned before. You know, it was, I can't really, nothing really jumps out as like something, very Conservation Commission centric, other than it was just kind of wetland science talk.
I've got a separate question for you.
Sure.
Downtown Mystic. The lot, it's the big building that went in next to the ice cream, Drawbridge Ice Cream.
Central Hall.
Central Hall, yes. How come nobody's living in there? Up above,
We don't have COs upstairs yet.
because
There's a long list of things they haven't done yet.
I'm
Part of it's,
surprised, because of right around the corner, the Standard,
They're in.
they're in.
they moved very fast.
Yes, but on the second
Confidence,
block, they've been up for a lot
Well, for
longer.
price,
Yeah,
And
those
they've got
are,
all the things downstairs. They're generating money from that, which they wanted,
Mhm.
and that's been doing well. Then you would think,
those are like $1.2 million, $1.5 million, those condos up there, there may not be a market to live But I guess they're not COs,
Well,
but the other ones were
standards.
650 at the standard, so I
Right.
think that was a more palatable price
Right.
point for
Yeah, but
somebody.
then people were buying them for $650 and selling them a month later for $100,000 more.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, they're in high demand. Definitely. They all sold like very quickly.
Mhm.
So, I mean, Central Hall, there's multiple owners there. I hear it takes them a couple months to pick a paint color. I mean, they're just moving at their own pace.
I'm
Really.
surprised because that must be costing them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different.
Well, I mean,
partners.
look at it from their perspective. Every week they wait, the value of that property goes up.
Imagine how much they can get for 1 week in the summer.
I mean,
You know,
This-
it's like almost 8:15. This isn't really conservation discussion.
it's good now.
Well, it's part of, at some point, sustainability, the mystics to sustainability and so forth is, it's one of those back burner sort of things that fits in.
No,
with the
and that's the
puzzle.
kind of development we want, redevelopment, urban redevelopment rather than mowing down
High
trees.
density,
You know,
and there was no tree.
yeah, well, the standard was there was 2 old buildings, they were cute little old buildings, but those 2 buildings that did all that, so it's-
I mean, the ones that burned down.
they didn't burn down.
No, they did.
No, they did not.
Some did. There was a big
There
fire
was a
there.
big fire
When
there,
was that?
20 years ago.
No, I'm
No,
talking
no,
about
no,
the one,
no.
was
That
it
was
was a
Central
Coldwell
That was Central
Banker?
Hall.
Yeah, Central Hall. This
Oh,
is
that was Central
where the
Hall.
standard is. There was a
Standard.
Coldwell Banker and a Giovanni's
Those
Hamburger.
are, yeah, those
Yeah.
are, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, there was an old trolley station.
All right, so any other new business? Going once, going twice, I will entertain a
Move to
motion.
adjourn.
Well, you're always quick on that one.
Second.
Is there a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Hi.
So moved.
Right. It's awesome being with
Woo,
everybody.
this was fun having, even though it took a lot longer.
Longer. Well, we got lots to catch up on. What are we
And
doing?
thank you very much, Bruce.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bruce.
for your
So
4
come and
years
sit
with
with
us.
us sometime.
And-
Come and sit out there sometime.
Yeah,
Just
maybe
to
we'll-
let us know you're still
And we have
around.
name tags for you too.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And thank you, Bruce, for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
All right. I'm
My
gonna
brother.
sign off. Bye.
All right.